Chapter 126. That's not right. Magic is the power of the heart. Saying a few more words to strengthen one's heart and reduce the enemy's fighting spirit may also be part of the battle. No, if you think about it dialectically, fighting may also be a process of strengthening your heart. While Rhodes was thinking wildly, Gray had already put on his clothes. He looked at the miserable Carter on the other side. You are really strong. Why are you so cautious when you have such strength? Strength and caution do not conflict, Rhodes said, and I don't think he is strong when he takes down a guy who doesn't have much brains, is hot-blooded, and only knows how to hit hard. It seemed right. Gray nodded, but felt something was wrong. Are you hinting at something? No, literally. Rhodes asked he crabbed to be on guard around him and said, let's go see the wounded. The two of them went to inspect the situation of the internment unit. Those with minor injuries were left alone, while those with more severe injuries were given emergency bandages. After a while, Captain dragged his injured body and arrived with several subordinates. Some people were also sent to the other magic location for reinforcements. Everyone looked at the devastated forest, with feathers, ice shards, gravel, broken trees all over the ground. The tragic situation of the Zate brothers and their men. What kind of fighting is going on here? Rhodes shouted quickly, hurry, hurry. Are there any professional medical soldiers? There are a few seriously injured people here. We brought a first aid kit. Save people quickly. Captain ordered. Others arrest the prisoner. Everyone took action. Rhodes and Gray gave up their positions and began to rest. Captain watched the team members handcuff the members of Naked Bandage Man one by one. The more he watched, the more he felt something was wrong. In terms of injuries, the difference between the injuries caused by Rhodes and Gray and the injuries caused by their teams is obvious. Captain said in shock, could it be said that the two of you killed the entire Dark Guild? We didn't kill so many people, thanks to the heroic fighting of your men. Rhodes didn't want to take credit, and the forced attention of the troops also played a big role. Thanks for your hard work, both of you. Captain wanted to say that no matter how bravely my men fought, they couldn't shoot people into targets with feathers or freeze them with ice. Just looking at the injuries of these guys, at least half of them were defeated by these two people, right? Two people killed most of the Dark Guild, and one of them didn't have dirty clothes, while the other just had dirty clothes. How strong are fairy tales magicians? Oh, there seems to be a rumor a while ago that the Fairy Queen couldn't wait for the Council's team. So in order to avoid missing the opportunity, she singled out the entire Dark Guild. Is this guild full of monsters? Captain, Deputy Captain, Deputy. How is he? Vice Captain. He's too seriously injured and won't be able to hold on anymore. Quick, think of a way. We can only do emergency treatment. If we want to rescue him, we must at least have professional operating rooms and surgeons. Operating room? Captain's face turned pale, and those accompanying the team were basically magicians who could fight. My companions who are part-time medics have only learned some simple battlefield first aid, and there is really no way to deal with injuries that are too complex. But in this deep mountain, where can we find an operating room and professional doctors? Can Deputy survive until then? Gray asked. Rhodes nodded. Let's take a gamble. We can't watch him die here. He waved his hand to summon the canyon swift crab. I can send him to the cat's nest as quickly as possible. Whether he can hold on or not depends on him. Yes, the cat's place is nearby. They might. But Captain, if the road is bumpy, the Deputy Captain's wound will burst open. If there is too much blood loss. What a shame. Gray stepped forward and pressed his palms softly, sealing the many wounds on Deputy's body. Do you have any better ideas? Let's do it. Captain made a decision and helped Gray lift Deputy onto the back of the river crab. Deputy, you must hold on. Rhodes and Gray got on the river crab, holding Deputy on the left and right. Pooty, the river crab is running wildly. It was a bit crowded with 3 people, but I couldn't care less at this time. The river crab was moving quickly through the mountains and forests, and Deputy's breathing had begun to be disordered. Sometimes it was short, and sometimes it was hard to take deep breaths. Rhodes, he can't hold it anymore. I know. Just support him and let me brew for a while. Group? Rhodes sat upright and concentrated into a state similar to meditation, in order to speed up the recovery of magic power. Answer the call. Crimson Mark Tree Monster. The huge tree monster grew rapidly from the ground like a tree. Rhodes' body fell backwards, almost falling off the river crab. Crown of Embers. He weakly ordered the tree monster. 3 red light patterns swam around Deputy's body, sometimes burrowing into the wounds, and then turning into light spots and exuding from the body, returning to their original state. The crimson mark tree monster disappeared quickly, and Deputy's breathing improved slightly, but now it was Rhodes who felt uncomfortable. Tired? I'm exhausted. You still have such a secret trick. What are you hiding? Look at my virtue. Does it seem like something that can be used in actual combat? Why not? Gray thought that if he hadn't consumed so much magic power earlier, Rhodes should be able to maintain a battle. Oh, given his character, this really can't be used in actual combat. Stop talking. Just look at me. If you can't hold on, the crab disappears and remember to catch me. Rhodes thought for a moment and changed his words. Forget it. Let's catch him first. Luo didn't like to meddle in such nosy matters, but it was really uncomfortable to watch life passing by before his eyes. He had no choice but to do his best. Hurrying slowly, it was already dark when we arrived at the cat's place. Rhodes ran out of power once during the journey, so he relied on Gray to build an ice truck to pull the two of them away. It was very cold on top of the ice truck. In order to prevent the wounded from freezing to death, Gray cut a bunch of branches to lay on top. There's nothing wrong with him except that he's panicking. After Rhodes recovered some magic power, he summoned the river crab again and took them forward. By this time, Wendy and Carla had already changed into cute pajamas and went to bed. Why is it at this time? Carla wanted to complain, but when she saw Deputy through the light, is this a member of the Senate? Gray's tone was urgent. He was seriously injured and it was hard to get here. Is there any way? Carla hesitated and said, Wendy? Wendy said firmly, I have no problem. In the guest room, Deputy was carried to the bed where Rhodes slept before, and Wendy sat beside the bed, her hands shining with green magic light. Rhodes and Gray were leaning on the corner and slumped on the ground. Both of them were very tired. A thin stream of sweat broke out on Wendy's forehead. It's okay. I will cure him. Carla said, Don't force yourself, although it is said in vain. Chapter 127. Wendy was still young and lacked magic power. She would fall down after using the healing magic once, and then retreated to the corner in a daze. Gray, Rod, and Wendy, the three of them sitting in a row, looked quite harmonious. Rod pointed to the other side of Wendy and asked Carla, Would you like to sit over here too? Carla looked at him like he was looking at an idiot. Who would go out of their way to do something like that? And Wendy, they both said don't force it. Wendy smiled happily. For her, it was very happy to be able to use her magic to help others. Deputy's condition has stabilized, his breathing is even, and there is blood on his face. Of course, those obvious injuries still need to be bandaged and allowed to recover naturally for a while. If he shamelessly seeks treatment from Wendy in the next few days, he can recover to the point where he won't even have a scar. But Carla will definitely drive him out with a broom. At this stage, sky magic still places too great a burden on Wendy. How effective is the sky magic? Rhodes thought about the crown of embers. He estimated that it would take a long time to achieve the effect that Wendy had in a short time. The side effects are indeed incomparable to professional healing magic. Wendy said in shame, My magic power is too weak, and I cannot be as strong as Grandine. Rhodes looked sad. I am very sympathetic to the fact that the magic power is not enough. Gray, haha, if Rhodes summoned, forced the door to close, and summoned again as recklessly as he did today, and even used to receive magic. A normal summoning magician would probably have been lying down long ago. Oh, he wasn't much better than lying down now, but Gray felt that if there was danger now, this guy might be able to summon the river crab again to take him away. Not enough magic power. Bah. Several people rested for a while, and Carla, the only one with normal mobility, helped Deputy clean the wound again, apply medicine, and bandage it. I also got him some extra frostbite medicine. Gray was actually slightly injured when he received Zat's impact, but because he used magic power to defend himself in time, he just needed a little rest. Carla went to get some simple food, specially cooked some porridge for Deputy, and then took Wendy to rest. Rhodes and Gray ate something, and were about to wash themselves briefly when they heard Deputy coughing. Ahem. Is this here? This is the home of the regular Mage Guild's cat form. Rhodes rarely used the full name to refer to a guild. He felt that it would be easier to reassure people. As a person with extensive experience in coma, he immediately told the other parties possible things. The naked bandage man has been dealt with. Many people in your team were injured, but you were the only one who almost died. Captain is fine too. He should still be detaining prisoners in the mountains. I don't know when he will return, and we shouldn't be involved. You were unconscious for about 7 or 8 hours. The magician here saved you. She is very tired and resting now. You can see her tomorrow. It is estimated that your people will be able to come to pick you up tomorrow. Okay, if there's no problem, let's have a bowl of porridge. Gray helped Deputy up and stuffed pillows behind him, then brought the porridge in and stuffed it into his hands. Huh. Deputy was holding the still warm bowl, his mind a little confused. I opened my mouth to ask how my companions were doing, but I just said that I wanted to ask how long I had been unconscious. Hey, I also said that I wanted to ask how Captain was doing. It took more than 10 seconds. Zhong. He seemed to have barely digested the information that Rhodes said at once. Everyone is fine, and the mission has been completed. Great. After 2 mouthfuls of delicious porridge, Deputy suddenly reacted. Thank you. Rhodes waved his hand. You're welcome. Eat well and rest well. If you have anything to do, we'll talk about it tomorrow. At night, Rhodes could only lay on the floor with Gray. To be honest, sleeping so close to a naked man was very stressful. It was like this when I lived in a tent before, and he wouldn't even take off his clothes at night. Early the next morning, Rod woke Gray up and told him to put on clothes to avoid embarrassment when Dr. Wendy came to check the ward later. Not only was this person not wearing clothes, but he was also not properly covered with quilts. It was really eye-catching in the morning. Deputy didn't know whether he was still awake or pretending to be asleep out of embarrassment. Rhodes did not disturb him and just packed up his bed and went out to wash up. This child cured me, but she is still so young. Deputy was shocked. He is proficient in medical skills at such a young age? Wendy and this serious-faced old man, the eldest brother, couldn't let go when he spoke. Because I can use sky magic. Deputy was even more surprised. Sky magic? Isn't that lost magic? This child can actually use sky magic? Wendy lowered her head slightly and forced a smile. It's really hard to believe. Carla said a little angrily. I'm telling you, do we have any reason to lie to you? Don't look down on Wendy just because she is young. I'm sorry. It's just because it's so amazing. Deputy said, thank you for taking care of me. I will try my best to repay you. Carla thinks this person is very troublesome and not as easy to get along with as fairy tales people. No, this person just had a normal reaction. There is something wrong with fairy tale people believing in Wendy so easily. That's not right. Wendy is a child worthy of trust. Carla's expression was tangled, and she couldn't figure out who was wrong for a while. In short, it was more comfortable to get along with the people from fairy tale. She looked at the 2 guys outside who had returned from morning exercise. Maybe it was easier to get along with idiots. Carla looked at Gray. Why did you go out for a run and you were missing one piece of clothing when you came back? Rhodes' face was full of shame. Sorry, I only found a pair of pants for him. I really didn't notice when the top was gone. Luo, who had eyes and ears in all directions, failed in front of Gray. Carla looked at him in disbelief. So besides his shirt, this guy also lost his pants while running? Gray turned his face and said harshly, it's just a matter of losing something. Is it normal? Wendy covered her face. Mr. Gray is a good person, but his habits are too. Rhodes looked at Deputy, who had a bandage on his head. Are you able to get off the ground? Yes, I can barely walk. Deputy said gratefully, thanks to Miss Wendy's treatment, and thanks to the help of the 2 of you yesterday. All kinds of help. Speaking of which, you are from the Senate. Why are you here? Carla wanted to ask this question yesterday, and you were brought here seriously injured. This was caused by fighting the magicians of the Dark Guild. But I'm sorry, because of the regulations of the council, I can't reveal more details, Deputy said. Please don't ask Mr. Lord and Mr. Gray either. I see you guys are complaining about the names of the extras. Captain, Vice Captain, Deputy. The author is tired of naming names O_. I couldn't think of the main character's name for several days, but he still expected me to be able to come up with it. How about it? You can read more daily new novels on fictionzone.net. Both sites share the same login details, so you don't need to sign up again. Chapter 128. Carla understood the rule that the content of the mission should be kept secret, but she was just a little unhappy. People from the Dark Guild are operating dozens of kilometers away from their guild, but they have no way of knowing why. Is this reasonable? But the other party has been arrested, so there should be no problem, right? Carla asked them to have breakfast with a stinking face, and then she had to talk to the president about the matter. The 3 of them rested temporarily at Huamao's lodge. In the afternoon, 2 taxi soldiers from the Forced Detention Force came to the door. Robin Liu specially entertained them, and then chatted with Deputy privately for a while, and then arranged new accommodation for the 3 of them. Deputy recovered a lot after another night's rest, and said goodbye to Wendy and Robin Roo the next morning. When they left Robin Roo's tent, Rhodes was chatting with Gray nearby. You said this mission is so dangerous. Will the reward be increased a little? Gray said. Without that kind of rule, compensation changes would only happen before we meet with the client and confirm the assignment. Or maybe it was after the magicians on the mission messed around and destroyed things. Gray didn't say this. Rhodes said, but didn't an accident happen this time? Maybe we will be given some subsidies in the name of rewards. Gray said, you also said that it was an accident. The subsidies and whatnot were a good idea. But that's the Senate. Rhodes thought of the president's endless self-reflection. Let's not talk about awards or anything like that. At least we should not embarrass the president a few times. Gray thought about himself, then thought about other unreliable guys, and said with some embarrassment, This, I hope. When Deputy and two subordinates came over, Rhodes and Gray stopped chatting in time. Rhodes asked, Are you leaving so soon? Gray also said, Is your body okay? Ah, Miss Wendy's magic is even more powerful than imagined. She is simply a witch in the sky. Deputy admired Wendy very much. I don't know if he heard what the two said, but his expression became a little embarrassed. I will remember the kindness of both of you, and at the same time, as the deputy captain of the 3rd Force Detention Force, on behalf of all members of the team, I would like to thank you for your help. Then, I will ask the captain to truthfully report the achievements of the two to the members of the Senate. Thank you. The two team members behind him bowed. Thank you both for your help. Rhodes said, Well, assisting the Senate in annihilating the Dark Guild can be considered our obligation for the time being. You're welcome. Gray felt even more uncomfortable. The people in the Senate were thanking him? Ha ha ha. Fake, right? For the Council's commission, the reward will not be settled on the spot after the task is completed, but will have to wait until Captain submits the report on this incident before sending someone to the guild. According to the efficiency of the Council, it is estimated that it will be received in about a week. But according to Deputy's current attitude, he might help with the urging when he goes back, and the time can be shortened even more. Generally speaking, the credibility of the Council is pretty good, so there is no need to worry about not receiving remuneration. Rhodes and Gray stayed at the Cat's hostel for one more day and had a good experience of the customs of the Neru tribe. Basically, Wendy took her around the village and played around the village. Wendy would take them to the woods to find some delicious wild fruits, and then Carla would complain about eating the fruits without washing them, or encourage Wendy to steal honey on a hillside, watch her stumble over tree roots while escaping, then rush over to pick her up and be chased all over the hill by bees, or go to a nearby lake for a fishing competition. Rhodes chose to take in the swift crabs and turn the lake into his home court, but Gray froze half of the lake in one breath. Then Rod broke out of the ice and had a battle with Gray, and in the end Wendy won the fish-catching competition. In the evening, a few people lit a fire by the lake, grilling fish and quarreling with Carla, which should be regarded as teasing the cat. Carla smiled just because of the quarrel. The 2 days that Rod and Gray were together were the 2 days that Wendy smiled the most in a long time. Now she was thinking that maybe the president's suggestion was right. Although everyone in the village was very nice, Wendy didn't even have a single peer to play with her. Several people ate the grilled fish, put out the fire carefully, and returned home happily. Magna was waiting at the entrance of the village. Wendy, you are back. Bebel seems a little uncomfortable. Can you go to her house and have a look? I'll go right away. Wendy hurried to Beeble's house. Magna added, Mr. Rhodes, Mr. Gray, the president asked me to convey that I would like to invite you to discuss something. Why do you need to send Wendy away? Rhodes and Gray looked at each other and replied, We will go there right away. Carla probably guessed what was going on, hesitated for a moment, and decided to accompany Wendy. President Robin Liu, are you looking for us? Rhodes and Gray entered the tent and came forward to greet them. Fool, I have something to ask. Today's Robin Liu was still talking while drinking wine from the corner of his mouth. What do you think of Wendy? Why does it sound like an old father wants to marry his daughter? Rod asked, Why do you ask this? Robin Liu said, I want to ask if Wendy is qualified to join Fairy Tail. Gray frowned and said, What do you mean? Doesn't Wendy like the cat's place very much? The cat transformation home is too small and too remote. A good child like Wendy shouldn't be trapped here. Robin Liu said, Wendy has rarely been as happy as she has been these past 2 days. Foolish. I think maybe Fairy Tail is the best place for her. So that's what you think. Gray smiled and said, There is an important requirement for joining Fairy Tail. What? Rhodes looked at him in surprise. I don't even know if the guild has any requirements. Robin Liu asked, Fooling. What is it? Do you need to master rare magic? Or do you need to be as strong as you? No, it's her own wish. This is the most important criterion. As long as Wendy says she wants to join Fairy Tail, we will snatch her over no matter where she is. But if she doesn't want to, Gray smiled and said, Old man, even if you are considering Wendy's future, it would be unfair to her to make such a decision without permission. After just a few days of getting along, we can already feel that Wendy, like us, regards the guild as her home, and you should know this better. Rhodes laughed. It seems that we are indeed a B*************** D guild capable of robbing people. Of course, the premise is that the other party is willing. Ha ha ha. Foolish. Robin Liu laughed. Fairy Tail. It is indeed a great guild. After laughing for a while, Robin Liu became serious. Then, how about making an agreement? If one day, the cat's place cannot be maintained, Wendy and Carla. I'll leave it to you. Chapter 129. Accepting the strange agreement inexplicably, the two left Robin Liu's tent in confusion. Rhodes said depressedly, Do older people talk like this? Gray also frowned. What is doomed to die? The magic of light will shine so brightly. I don't understand it at all. I asked but refused to tell. I asked but refused to go into details. It's so annoying. Rhodes only knows that Wendy will most likely be a member of Fairy Tail in the future, which means something will happen to the cat's place. Just like Robin Liu said, it can't be sustained. Is it financial difficulties? Or is it being attacked by a dark guild similar to Naked Bandage Man? No matter what, it would be too cruel for Wendy to disappear in the cat's place. I wonder if there is any way to stop it, even if it might cause her to not go to Fairy Tail. So what? Wendy's favorite place is the cat's place. It doesn't mean she can't make friends if she's not in the same guild. Later, Carla found Rhodes and Gray while Wendy was reading a book. Did the president tell you about Wendy? Rhodes asked. How do you know? Because he had a conversation with Wendy a few days ago. Carla said. How did you answer? Gray said matter-of-factly. Of course we must respect Wendy's wishes. It is everyone's freedom to join any guild. Humph, you're not that annoying. Carla glanced at Gray, then immediately turned her head and added, If you can put on your clothes, By the next morning, even though Wendy was reluctant, it was time for Rod and Gray to go back. Of course, I plan to buy some specialties in Rhodes and take them back as gifts. The specialties here are clothing, fabrics, and other fabrics, as well as some hand-woven products and wood products. It is said that these things use ancient weaving and carving techniques that have been passed down for hundreds of years, which are very memorable. In fact, the enthusiastic villagers planned to give it away for free, saying that they had produced a lot and the village had a small population and could not use it all. But he was too embarrassed to take it for free. He only accepted a few gifts from Wendy and Carla and paid for the others. If he didn't have enough money, he even borrowed some from Gray and paid him back with his reward. I did this because I have always been taken care of by everyone and have not received anything in return. My mood is probably similar to when I got my first month's salary after graduation and wanted to buy some gifts for my family. The time I accompanied Mira to the capital, I didn't have enough money, so I was embarrassed to ask her to borrow it. The time I teamed up with Natsu, the small village didn't have anything special. This time, the opportunity was finally right. An old man like Gray doesn't have as many worries as him. It would be awkward to bring a gift to someone, and he has a general interest in things like fabrics and clothes. Rod brought a backpack and a suitcase with him when he came, and a bigger suitcase when he left. Gray said angrily, Why do you want me to help you pick up the things you bought? Isn't it inconvenient for me? Why don't you help me get this? Rhodes handed the small bag to Gray. Gray chose to stay away from him. Who wanted to take this pile of explosives? Wendy, Carla, President Robin Liu, and several villagers sent them to the entrance of the village. Robin Liu just looked at them with a smile on his back and didn't say much. Wendy's tears welled up in her eyes. Mr. Rhodes, Mr. Gray, will you come again in the future? Rhodes touched Wendy's head. I will come to play when I have time. Wendy can also go to Magno. Leah is here to play with us. That's it. Gray squatted down to talk to Carla, looked at Rod and Wendy, and said with a smile, Do you need that kind of comfort? Carla said disgustedly. No need. Stay away from me and put on your clothes, or you will be arrested as a pervert by the security team. Gray said helplessly. He actually said such words at this time. Rhodes said, It's not Carla's problem. It's that you should wear your clothes properly, including your pants. Rhodes felt so tired that he almost got tired of saying the same words. The touching atmosphere of parting was lost by this person. The journey back was uneventful. The biggest difficulty was keeping an eye on Gray. After several failed efforts and being treated as a perverted companion, Rhodes also chose to stay away from him. One of the two guys disliked that the other could explode at any time, and the other disliked that the other could strip naked at any time. After Wendy and Carla were gone, they finally began to hate each other. However, in order to avoid causing commotion as much as possible, Rhodes summoned Worm and asked it to follow Gray and pick up clothes. Pets help pick up dropped objects, a reasonable setting. However, Worm objected to this. He didn't let it out to play for so many days, but he had to work when he was called. Rhodes took out the salary and both parties reached an agreement. Welcome back. After many days, seeing Myra's sweet smile again made people feel more cordial. I'm back. Rhodes temporarily placed all his luggage at the counter. I feel like I've been out for so long, and I'm exhausted, Gray said calmly. It's not that exaggerated. And weren't we just playing in the last 2 days? You don't understand. This is called travel fatigue, and it needs to be cured by the smiles and care of family members. Rhodes relaxed completely, held his chin in one hand, and looked for any excuse to look at Mira a few more times. Thank you for your hard work. Mira poured 2 glasses of water and pushed them to Rhodes and Gray. She watched them drink them down in one gulp, and then shouted upstairs, President, Rhodes and Gray are back. Makarov jumped down from the second floor vigorously, not looking like an 87-year-old man at all. Hey, you two have worked hard. President, take the stairs properly. Mira puffed her mouth behind the counter. Very cute. I know. Makarov treated Mira like a scolded student dealing with a teacher. I already know the situation of the mission. You two did a great job. Makarov wanted to wipe away tears as he spoke. I was actually praised by the Senate, woo. That's great. I did a great job. Rhodes didn't expect the president's reaction to be so big. You're not so excited, are you? Mira covered her mouth and smiled. The president was happy all day yesterday, and his walking posture was stronger than usual. The more Mira said this, the more Rhodes felt sad for the president. It would be better to cause less trouble for the president in the future. Well, first return the exploding magic crystal in the bag, lest it explode later. Gray felt a little ashamed. He had to bear a certain responsibility for the president's behavior and would never take off his clothes randomly in the future. Rhodes decided to let the president vent for a while, picked up his backpack, and went to the warehouse. Before leaving, he said, Gray clothes, oh. Chapter 130. After placing the dangerous items, Rhodes opened his big box. Is this how you wear it? Makarov put it on enthusiastically, trying to show some majestic expressions. But after a few seconds, he still couldn't help laughing, twisting left and right to show everyone the gift he had received. Haha, that's nothing, President. A burlesque show? The president is already short in stature, but after wearing the exaggerated headdress, his head is almost larger than his body. Coupled with the old man's unpretentious behavior, the whole guild was soon amused. Rod, do you have mine? Lucky asked expectantly, is there anything special about the cat's stay? Don't think about it. The gift is yours, but it's definitely not a torture instrument. Rhodes pulled out a wooden mask with sharp teeth, shaped like an evil spirit. This was the most hideous and terrifying thing he could find in the entire village. Wow, the details are so well done. As a user of wood modeling magic, Lucky immediately discovered the highlight of this mask. And although it is not a torture instrument, this evil ghost mask fits the atmosphere of her room quite well, and it does not feel out of place when hung on the wall. Rhodes went through the things one by one. What he gave to Litas was a set of ancient paintbrushes. What he gave to Levi was a parchment with ancient writings from the Nilu tribe. And what he gave to Troy was a unique set of brushes near the cat's place. Plant seeds. What was given to Jet was the shoes worn by the Niru tribe when hunting. What was given to Erza was an old-fashioned wooden armor, which was more decorative than practical and would be worn at celebrations. Then there are the animal tooth necklace for Elfman, the face paint for Nabu, the wine for Kana, the bow and arrow for Alshak, etc. As long as it is someone I am familiar with, I have specially selected a suitable gift. For those who are not familiar with it, some small ornaments, bracelets, headscarves, veils, etc. are prepared. The gift for Mira was naturally a very beautiful set of clothes, with matching bracelets, anklets, earrings, and even hair ropes. It's a pity that it's more of a summer style, and it's already late autumn, so it's not suitable to wear anymore. So Rhodes also prepared an extra shawl, which is not only useful when the weather is cold, but also can be matched with that outfit if he really wants to. Mira held the thing in her arms with a smile, obviously liking it very much. Lucky watched Mr. Luo distribute the gifts and was too lazy to say who was being treated specially. She tried to express her thoughts with her eyes. "Don't look at me like that. I don't know other people's clothes sizes," Rhodes said confidently. But more problems were exposed. Yes, I know that you often go shopping together and even know each other's clothing sizes." Mira patted Lucky lightly, but also realized that her relationship with Rhodes seemed to be a little closer. In fact, she didn't know what to do with the current situation. Thinking about the Harvest Festival, I also said that I would invite Rhodes out to eat. While distressed, I couldn't help but feel a little hopeful. Lucky had eaten enough melons and saw something strange in the box. "What are those pieces of wood?" Rhodes said, "It's just ordinary wood with flint and steel. I'll give it to Natsu when he comes back." Natsu was not in the guild. It seemed that he couldn't wait to have fun after getting rid of the side effects the day before yesterday, so he went out to work. Lucky didn't know why. What is this? Is it considered a flame brought back from abroad? This was a method that Rhodes finally came up with. The wood and flint coming from the cat's place should be regarded as the flames coming from the cat's place, right? I hope Natsu likes it. That fishbone isn't a fish from other places for happy, is it? That's a fishbone decoration. It's a handicraft, right? Rhodes felt that Happy would like anything from Carla's guild. He wanted to ask Carla to make something specially for Happy, but he was rejected. It wouldn't be appropriate to pass on something that Carla gave him to Happy, so just leave it at that, poor Happy. To celebrate the safe return of Rhodes and Gray, and to celebrate my being praised by the Senate, let's have a banquet. Oh! The president's proposal was immediately responded to by everyone. Most of the guild members were people who like to have fun, so everyone was happy. Are there another banquet? Why do I feel like there have been so many banquets recently? Rhodes felt that the banquets had suddenly become more frequent. Because there is a magical parade celebration banquet before departure, and there is a welcome banquet at the cat's accommodation after departure. We have been having banquets recently. Gray waved his hand. His shirt disappeared, and he immediately blended into the crowd. Anyway, cheers. Mira put a wine glass into Rod's hand. Be a little more controlled this time. Where can I control it? The atmosphere quickly turned into a toast and a toast again. The president was extremely happy today, dragging Rhodes and Gray around to show off. Obviously, everyone in the guild is his own, so I don't know what he is showing off about. Anyway, just saying a few words, the wine glass was filled. Everyone was laughing and making trouble, and as expected, the trouble lasted until the middle of the night. Rhodes got drunk again. In a daze, he seemed to see Mira put on the clothes he gave her and asked him how he was doing. Good, beautiful. Rhodes remembered what he should have said. The sun shone on his face through the window. Rhodes covered his forehead and stood up. I will never drink so much again. Hot milk or warm water? Which one do you want to drink? I want them all. Rhodes saw clearly the person in front of him, and it turned out that it was not an illusion. Mira really put on the clothes of the Niru tribe. The top was a little cool, so she put on a shawl, but her slender waist was still on display generously. A slightly gorgeous golden necklace replaced her original crystal pendant, and her hair was specially tied into a braid that suited this outfit. The sleeves are split sleeves, but the shoulders and arms that should be exposed are partially covered by the shawl, making it appear more dignified. The hem of the skirt is slightly higher, and her guild crest can be seen when walking around. The socks only cover the heels, as if they exist only to serve as a base for the anklets, exposing half of the white instep and the toes that move slightly uneasily. It's the first time I wear clothes of this style, and I feel a little uncomfortable. Miss Mira, the most popular model this year, took a few steps unnaturally. Rhodes felt that the discomfort of his hangover was relieved a lot. It's very beautiful. It looks better than the real Niru tribesman. Really? Mira turned around slightly, with a smile on her face. It's almost time to change it. Replace it so soon? It's not fast at all. It feels weird wearing summer clothes. In late autumn, and everyone is almost awake. Chapter 131. Mira changed back to her usual outfit, except for an extra bracelet. Rhodes also returned to his normal life, feeling a little more happy in his heart. Wait until everyone wakes up, arranges the messed up tables and chairs, repairs the broken things, then those who should go home, those who should work, and those who should chat continue chatting. Makarov looked at the children who had packed up the guild and went to look at the bulletin board, feeling both relieved and worried. He thought about it seriously and tentatively said, Rhodes, what's wrong, President? Rhodes was trying to think of a way to drive Mira to the lounge to sleep. She said she didn't pull an all-nighter, but she definitely didn't get enough sleep. Would you like to form a team with someone else? Makarov looked at the problem children in front of the bulletin board. For example, how about Artzak? President, I just came back. I want to rest for a few days. Rhodes could see the president's little thoughts at a glance. The old man showed it too obviously. That's right. Makarov was also a little embarrassed and sighed regretfully. Rhodes wondered, why are you so worried? I remember that Alzak is usually quite stable and doesn't get into trouble much, right? Mila explained on behalf of Makarov. It's because Arzak has had some problems with his recent state. After the Harvest Festival ended, he went out to take on 2 missions. Everything went smoothly at first, but every time I got distracted at critical moments and almost hit the wrong target when I fired. Especially last time, the client came to complain that Alzak's magic bullet hit his ear, which was too scary. Is it so serious? Rhodes frowned. If this continues, someone will die, right? Mira wanted to yawn, but held it back and continued. It's not to that level yet, because Alzak usually uses paralysis bullets, and nothing will happen if he gets hit, but this state is not very good. My mind wanders, and I can't concentrate at critical moments. I think it may be due to lack of rest and the need for a good sleep. Rhodes stared at Mira. What do you think? Mira gave him an angry look. Yes, after I finished counting yesterday's water. Let me do the math for you. I'm a science major, and my math test score has never been lower than 140. Rhodes snatched the pen and account book from her hands. Mira didn't understand what the scoring criteria were, but judging from his expression, he must be very powerful. She blinked, not wanting to live up to his kindness. President, I'm going to take a break. You can go talk to Alzak. Ah, you've worked hard too. Makarov nodded, and he really should let Alzak take a break. He looked at Rhodes and then at Mira. They were both very reliable children. More than a week has passed since the Harvest Festival, and the festive atmosphere in Magnolia has faded. Because most of the tourists from out of town have left, the only guests in the tavern are the guild members and a few nearby residents as usual. It is not as busy as before the festival, so Mira can still be busy without Mira. But when someone wants to accept a commission, the president needs to decide whether to agree or not. Rhodes wants to audit the commission or something, but he is still far away. He can help register, stamp, find information, etc., and help the president share some of the burden. I usually watch Mira do this, and the process is very familiar. Makarov glanced at Rhodes, who was working hard. In fact, other than him and Mira, those entrusted documents cannot be read casually by anyone else. But letting Rhodes take a look, it felt like there was nothing wrong with it, so he didn't say anything. Makarov suddenly discovered that this child could do many things. Whether it was leading a team to complete tasks or managing a guild, he seemed to be able to get involved. And they are all done well? No, not just good. I should say excellent. I really want to leave everything to Rhodes. Makarov had this idea. Although it may be a bit hard, but with Mira here, it won't be hard for the two of us. Makarov fell into deep thought, and after a moment he suddenly asked, Rhodes, can you write a letter of apology? What? Rhodes' pen tip stopped. It was fine. Why did he suddenly ask for a confession? It's the kind of letter of apology that the president is ordered to submit to the council after a guild member gets into trouble. Don't even think about it. I can't write a single word of the self-criticism for you, Rhodes said categorically. I have just made meritorious deeds for the guild, and Gray has just vomited blood for the guild. Why do you want me to write a review? I'm not asking you to write it for me now. I can't write it for you tomorrow, Rhodes said. I advise you to hurry up and start writing. There may be tomorrow's review to be written tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow. Makarov gradually became petrified, and the child's words were too heartbreaking. Hello, President Makarov. Rhodes, you are back. It feels like I haven't seen you for a long time. Brother Goodman, I just came back yesterday, because there was a party just after I came back, so I have been in the guild and haven't had time to go home yet. Rhodes was a little surprised. Goodman occasionally came to the tavern for a drink, but the frequency was very low. Counting this time, he only saw Goodman twice in the guild. Why do you have time to come here? Do you have a task to entrust? No, I just wanted to take a break after being busy for a long time. Speaking of which, you were very active on the day of the magic parade. Don't mention the magic parade. I feel so ashamed. Rhodes skillfully poured a glass of wine for Goodman. By the way, I have a gift for you. Rhodes took out an exquisite wood carving, a piece of cloth with a beautiful pattern, and a small toy that looked like a bamboo dragonfly from the suitcase. Is this too expensive? Goodman's family is engaged in wood carving and weaving business, and he felt that these things were valuable at first sight. I brought it back from the south. It's very cheap there. It's just that the craftsmanship is special. I thought you might like it. Rhodes rummaged in his pocket and found the peace charm hanging on the key. Just think of it as repaying the gift you gave me before. That's just an ordinary peace charm. The value is too different. Goodman played with the wood carving, accepted it with embarrassment, and pushed it back but was reluctant to part with it. Rhodes shook his head slightly. In my eyes, the value is the same. No, the value of this peace charm may be a little higher. Goodman didn't know Rhodes' origins or his situation at the time, so he wouldn't know that for Rhodes at that time, every bit of kindness from strangers was precious. Well, then I will accept it shamelessly. Goodman really likes these things. He is thinking about whether to reduce the rent next month. Molly and Bayer will also like it. In a few days, I brought them here to say thank you. Rhodes waved his hand. It's just a souvenir. No need to be so solemn. Goodman reluctantly put his things aside for the time being, holding a glass of wine, and asked about Rhodes's travel experience, and also chatted with the president about Magnolia's recent events. When he saw that the two people were busy, he went to chat with Makao and Wakaba. The three people occasionally talked about topics about family and children. After helping two more people register for tasks, Rhodes saw a somewhat slovenly man walking up to the counter. President Makarov, I want to join the guild, and I also want to join Levy's lane engine team. Chapter 132. It's Dabrin, Makarov said slowly. It's okay to join the guild, but if you want to join Levy's team, you have to ask her, Jet, and Troy. Rhodes looked at the man who was talking to the president. He had a crew cut, unshaven beard, dull eyes, and even bare feet in late autumn. I always feel like I can see the word decadent in him. He seemed to have met this man several times in the tavern, and he seemed to be quite familiar with Jet and the others. Dabrin scratched the back of his head. I already asked Levy, but was rejected. Makarov asked, Why did she reject you? Dabrin said, Because I am not a wizard. Rhodes. The team is going out to pick up the mission. If you are not a magician, why are you joining in the fun? But thinking about the situation when he joined the guild, Rhodes suggested, How about you try to learn magic? May I? Makarov nodded. He would not refuse a child who wants to learn magic. What do you want to learn? Same magic as Levy. Three-dimensional text magic. Rhodes, come and tell him about it. Me. Rhodes was stunned. According to normal development, wouldn't he be called Levy? Makarov nodded. You can tell me? Okay. Rhodes sorted out his thoughts. Three-dimensional text magic is a method of using magic to write text. Sure enough, I'd better forget it. It feels very troublesome. Before Rhodes could finish his sentence, Dabrin gave up at the speed of light, faster than Jet's confession and rejection. Oh? Rhodes looked at Dabrin's leaving figure and couldn't figure out whether he really didn't want to learn anymore, or whether he had some objections to himself and wanted Levy to teach him. Don't worry, that kid has such a character. He will give up immediately if there is a little trouble. Makarov sighed. I feel like even if I join a guild, I will become like Nabu and never go out to work. Rhodes thought for a while. I always feel that these words sound familiar, because the president has been worried about whether you would become the second Nabu for a while. Rhodes turned his head. Mira, are you awake? Well, full of energy. Mira smiled and bent her arms to show her vitality. She had probably just washed her face, and the hair beside her ears was still a little wet, which looked a little naughty in line with her movements. Makarov followed up her last sentence. That's just a common worry. Isn't Rhodes very good now? Rhodes looked at him and said that he was the second one to pick up the cloth when he was not going out. He helped you earn praise and said that he was very good. The president is also a big pig's hoof. Makarov felt uncomfortable looking at him and jumped off the counter. I'll leave the guild to you. I have something to go out for. President, Rhodes called him. I have two things that I would like you to give to Granny Porliusica when you have time. They are the thoughts of Wendy and I. The last sentence is weird. Anyway, it was a cloak that Rhodes chose, a sachet made by Wendy herself, and a pack of herb seeds that Rhodes suggested that Wendy ask everyone to help collect. Makarov gathered his things and left. Mira flipped through the account books and registers and praised. Well done. Rhodes smiled and said, Of course. When I become an S-class mage, I will come to compete with you for your job. You have to worry about losing your job, Miss Mira. Is that so? Mira thought for a while and said with a smile, Then why not fire you now, and deduct all your salary, and forfeit the remuneration from the last mission? Rhodes said in a weird voice, It's an abuse of power. Is there someone to take care of it? Yes, I happen to be responsible for managing this kind of thing. Mira sat down, folding her hands and supporting her chin. If you have any opinions, please feel free to ask, Mr. Rhodes. Rhodes looked sad. Alas, the demon Mirajane's clutches have spread to every corner of the guild, and all power is under her control. Even Fairy Tale's strongest newcomer, future star Rhodes, had to temporarily succumb to her and silently seek opportunities to resist. But look, the power of the oppressed people is unlimited. Mirajane's dark reign will not last long. It was all a mess. Mira laughed. I feel like you talk a lot when you go out. Don't become Marcus. Rhodes continued. In order to prevent Rhodes from getting out of control, the evil Mirajan even took action to interfere with his growth direction. Mira raised her hand to strike, but Rhodes smiled and stopped playing tricks. After finishing the trivial matters, Rhodes went to the backyard during the break. It was almost time to get back to his usual training rhythm. This mission made him deeply aware of his own shortcomings. Working with Gray and a little help from the internment troops, it took so much effort to destroy a dark guild. And it also caused Gray to be injured a little, although it was something he had brought upon himself. But compared to the coolness of Erza, who casually singled out the entire Dark Guild in order to come back early for dessert, it was far behind. I won't be short of living expenses for at least the next half-month, so I need to practice hard. The first is the improvement of physical fitness and magic power that must not be given up. This is the basis of all magic and cannot be neglected. Then we need to speed up the exploration of Summoner's Rift and see if we can get the blue buff to make up for the shortcomings of magic power. Also, you should practice new forms when receiving magic. It's time to get busy again. After getting off work in the evening, Rod was ready to practice some more. Mira naturally changed into her sports clothes and went to the backyard. Rhodes asked, "Are you still practicing late lately?" Mira tied her hair and said, "Of course, don't underestimate my perseverance. I always feel that girls have a strange charm when they tie their hair." Rhodes watched her arranging her hair and asked, "Where is Elfman?" Mira complained. "I went out to work in the afternoon, saying that I can't lose to you as a man, but I just came back the day before yesterday." "What the hell can't you lose to me? Anyone who can take on more than 2 missions a month can't lose to me," Rhodes said sarcastically. He shouldn't be so working hard, duh. He wondered if Elfman was already preparing to stand in his way. Mira rolled her eyes at him. "You are the one. You promised to take a good rest after completing the task, but why did you end up practicing hard for a while?" Rhodes smiled and said, "This can be regarded as another kind of rest. As long as you stay in the guild, you are already resting mentally." Rhodes found that as long as he returned to the guild, he would relax. Of course, others will still be a little nervous when fighting in groups, but it is a different kind of nervousness, and they will not feel tired. Mira thought for a while and asked, "Would you like to try teaming up with Elfman next time?" "Okay. When?" "When you've had enough rest." No. Mira immediately changed her mind. "Let's wait until I think you've had enough rest." Rhodes laughed. "Okay." The two people were talking and doing warm-up activities, and then started their own exercise projects. Although the content of the two people's exercises is different, and they stop talking after entering a serious state, they may not even be in each other's sight all the time. But it's good to know that someone is with you. Exercise, rest, wipe sweat, and apply medicine. Then send her home. Don't know why. Without Elfman present, Rhodes' magic power was never enough to summon a river crab. In fact, it's not that I don't know. In the cool autumn night, Mira and Rhodes walked side by side on the deserted street. She hesitated and asked, "Are you free tomorrow?" Chapter 133. It is impossible to be reserved. Hesitation will lead to defeat. "I know a shop where you may like the cuisine." Mira tightened her arms holding the clothes. "Shall we go and try it together tomorrow?" "Good." On the way back, Rhodes felt windy as he walked. When he arrived at the door of his house, he remembered that he had forgotten to call him. It's not a big problem, just practice more. Going upstairs and entering the house, Rhodes felt that he needed to do some simple cleaning again. "Come out, worm." A small circle of white-haired dumplings larger than a basketball appeared with its tongue sticking out, its dark eyes blinking, and there was no food in front of it. It turned around and saw no dining table around. "But this environment seems a bit familiar." "Oh, I'm home." Huyulu. Although there was no food, Worm was still a little excited. "It's great that you are so energetic. I was just about to do some hygiene." "Look." "Huh." Worm lay down on his side, his tongue hanging out, and he looked like, "This poro is dead. Please don't disturb me. If you don't want to do it, forget it. Last time, I decided not to use it to help wipe the bottom of the bed." There wasn't much work anyway, so Rhodes simply wiped the dust and grabbed Worm to take a shower with him. Taking a cold shower in the current weather is a bit uncomfortable, so I have to boil some hot water. Three-dimensional text magic can help a little bit, but it's not convenient enough. I'm going to buy a special magic crystal tomorrow. While sleeping, Rhodes discovered a new use for Worm. The little guy was warm, and holding it at night was more comfortable than any hot water bottle to warm the baby. Let it warm the bed every day when the weather gets colder. Anyway, no matter how cold it is here, it's still far worse than the howling abyss. Goodman didn't come to do business this morning. I don't know if business was so good a few days ago and I want to take a vacation now, or if I'm studying new carving techniques at home. Most of the holiday decorations of other businesses on the street have also been taken off, making it feel a little deserted compared to the festival. Rhodes changed into autumn clothes, blue jeans, a white t-shirt, and a beige long-sleeve jacket. The fairy tale logo on the chest of the t-shirt and the back of the jacket was printed by Mira herself. I don't know if I need to show off the coat of arms on my arm when I wear this kind of clothes when I'm on a mission. Good morning, Rod. Is there anything good today? Morning, Marcus. Rhodes didn't want to tell the big speaker the important point. I'm going to practice a new receiving magic today. Do you want to come and check it out? Marcus refused. Spare me. Wouldn't it be better for you to go find Gray? Rhodes said helplessly. I was disliked by Gray. He said that he would talk to Rocky more in the past 2 days, and that he might have to team up to go out to work in a few days, so he asked me to stay away. Marcus said, that guy Loki still likes to avoid you. Otherwise, he is actually quite strong. Yeah, I can't understand him. Does he have a good relationship with Gray? It seems that once I went out with Gray, I accidentally attracted a beautiful and bold woman. Marcus's expression was a bit wonderful. One of them found this kind of thing troublesome, and the other was very good at dealing with this kind of thing. And then their relationship became better and better. Ha, ha ha, as expected of Loki, and worthy of Gray. Rhodes expressed his admiration. The two people really matched each other in a strange way. In the morning, I did some chores like wiping the table as usual. It was rare that Mr. Cook went out of his way to see Rod outside the kitchen. He missed Worm a little. Rhodes summoned Worm to take him away. He couldn't think of anything that Mr. Cook liked about Worm. Do you like it? It's also pretty good. It definitely pays off to have a good relationship with the chef. After the president arrived, Rhodes went to the yard to try to receive new wild monsters. This time Mira also followed. So Rhodes deliberately took a few steps back. The target this time is the ancient stone beetle, and Rhodes is a little curious whether he can gain 2 more lives after receiving it. He summoned the ancient stone beetle and placed his hand on the stone beetle's leg. Take over. The stone beetle turned into light and disappeared. Rhodes was shrouded in light and waited until the light disappeared. His figure has grown to 2 meters tall, and his body has turned into the color of a stone beetle, as if he was wearing a set of stone armor. There are lines emitting light blue light on the front of the body and on the limbs, which looks more technological. Rhodes summoned the river crab and connected to its perspective to observe himself. This is Shield Mountain? The arms are not that thick, and the Fantastic Four are not that ugly. The lava beast? There are not that many thorns on the body. He moved a few times and posed a few times, and he felt quite handsome. Bang Bang knocked on his chest, feeling that the hardness was much higher than that of Heartfilia. It's this style again. Makarov said, this time it's Earth attribute magic, right? Well, it seems to focus on defense, and with the accompanying magic, I should be able to... Whoa! Before he finished speaking, Rhodes suddenly sank into the ground as if he had fallen into water. A few seconds later, a stone head popped up from the ground. He still spoke in a low voice but could hear the smile. This magic is super interesting. It can move like swimming in the soil. While talking, Rhodes tried breaststroke, backstroke, freestyle. He couldn't help but think that Doryman seemed to have given Nobita a prop with a similar effect. To a certain extent, this should be regarded as the fulfillment of a little childhood dream. That comfortable state made Mira laugh. It's great. He has become stronger again. Makarov looked at it for a while and shook his head. Isn't this going very smoothly? I'm going back first. Mira, please stay with him. Good. Mira watched Rhodes swimming around in the field and couldn't help but stretch out a hand. Spots of light lit up on the arm, and the magic power in the body passed away, but unfortunately there was no change at all. Am I the only one who keeps treading water? Makarov's voice came. Of course not. You are moving forward every day. Even if the magic is not restored, your heart never stops. President. Mira turned around and saw Makarov with his hands behind his back with a friendly smile on his face. The experience of losing a loved one is like a plow moving through our hearts, and it is undoubtedly painful. But at this time, we often have two choices. We can choose to wallow in the sorrow of the past, choose to walk through this land in a hurry, and no longer love anyone. You can also choose to stand up in pain, sow new seeds while walking through the fields, and give birth to more love. No matter which one you choose, you are always moving forward, and always remember that the guild and everyone are behind you. President. Mira bit her lip. Behind her now is a stone man swimming in the soil. No, Mira turned around. The stone man had already released the magic and stood in front of her, casting a look of admiration and resentment at the president. Behind him is the president, the noisy tavern, and the entire guild. Makarov felt a little guilty because of the small complaint in Rhodes's eyes. I just expressed my feelings. I didn't mean to make her cry. I know. Otherwise, I must go to the Senate to complain about your misconduct. It's not that serious. Then I tell everyone in the guild that you bullied Mira and let everyone despise you? You should still restrict me from drinking with Mira. Mira interrupted. President, you said this yourself? Rhodes nodded. Yes, I heard it and I bear witness. Makarov opened his mouth wide. No, that's it. Mira laughed. She looked at the noisy tavern and then at Rhodes. Sow. New seeds? Chapter 134. The lower body is a pair of dark blue wide-leg jeans, paired with a pair of white flat shoes. A simple outfit looks elegant and capable. It's just that this kind of sweater design has very long sleeves that extend to cover half of the palm, but the shoulders and delicate collarbone are exposed, making people confused whether to keep cool or warm. After careful research, Rhodes finally figured out that the most important meaning of this design is that it looks good. The two of them went out together as promised near noon, leaving the matters in the tavern to Lucky, Sally, and Izzy. I received Rhodes' gift just yesterday, and now I can't even complain. The envious looks from other people are inevitable, but they won't turn into geese and block the way again. Is it cold? Rhodes knew it was a bit blunt to ask, but he couldn't help it. It won't be cold in the guild. It's noon now, no problem. Mira paused, brushed her hair with her hands, and asked, Don't you look good? Rhodes was a little surprised that Mira would ask this. He pointed to his eyes. I thought you could see the word good-looking in my eyes. Is there any? Let me take a closer look. Mira took 2 quick steps and turned around in front of Rhodes, looking into his eyes with a smile. Rhodes stopped and looked at her, looking at her light blue eyes, her slightly drooped corners, her beautiful eyelashes. He also watched her raise her hand to smooth her hair unnaturally. The atmosphere became a little strange, and Rhodes could feel the temperature of his cheek rising slightly. It's definitely not a good idea to look at a girl you like, but have no relationship with yet. Both of them looked away awkwardly, not knowing whether to stop or go for a moment. Sister Mira, Brother Rod. It came at just the right time, and both of them breathed a sigh of relief. Romeo? Mira recognized this child, who often went to the guild to play. Are you going out to play alone? Rhodes knew this kid. He was Macau's son. He was only 5 years old this year. He usually liked to play with Natsu and Happy. During the period when the news about Rhodes' strongest newcomer was popular, Romeo also admired him a little, but he still couldn't compare with Natsu. Yes. Romeo nodded and asked, Sister Mira, is Brother Natsu in the guild? Natsu and Happy went out to work. They will probably be back tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Mira saw Romeo's disappointed expression and said, Your father is in the guild. You can go find him. Romeo shook his head. Dad has daddy things to do, so you can't always pester him. I'm going to go play with other friends. See you, Sister Mira. See you, Brother Rod. Goodbye. Rhodes and Mira waved to him, but they couldn't bear to tell him that Macau was just drinking in the guild. But Romeo himself should also know what his father is like. Maybe in his eyes now, that's what adults should do. Rhodes said. Romeo seems to be proud that his father is the wizard of fairy tale. Yeah, it's the opposite of Wakaba's daughter. Mira remembered hearing Wakaba complain about things at home a few days ago. Wakaba doesn't seem to be liked by his daughter, and he has been quarreling with his wife recently. He's really not good at handling family relationships. Rhodes recalled that he and Mira happened to help ease the situation in the past. The two chatted about the gossip in the guild, and unknowingly arrived at the restaurant Mira mentioned. The cuisine here is really diverse. Rhodes realized this again. The two just ordered braised chicken with chestnuts, cumin mushrooms, corn with pine nuts, clams in original sauce, fried meat with green pepper, and a lotus root and pork rib soup. Although the sign, name, and decoration are all common styles in this world, this is actually a Chinese restaurant. Because she always eats in the guild, Mira is relatively familiar with Rhodes' usual eating habits and taste preferences. No wonder she said Rhodes might like it here. What's wrong? Mira smiled, and Rhodes' surprised expression was quite interesting. Rhodes looked at her. It's a bit of a surprise. Thank you. Ah la la, it seems I guessed it right. Mira blinked her left eye slightly, looking a little playful. Rod hoped that she would know that random discharge of electricity was against the rules. It was late autumn, so the two of them ordered some seasonal vegetables, which tasted quite delicious. Coupled with the good cooking skills of the chef in this restaurant and his mood, Rhodes enjoyed the meal very much. Slow down, I won't compete with you. Mira filled a small bowl of soup and pushed it in front of Rhodes. She was used to seeing how devoted he was when eating. These dishes don't look difficult to learn. Do you want to try them next time? Just wait. After a while, both of them stopped using their chopsticks and each held a small soup bowl and talked. A masked man with a cloak and a staff passed by outside the store. When he noticed the two of them, he suddenly flicked his cloak and disappeared like a phantom. Rhodes hesitated and said, "That person?" Mira said, "It's Mist Gang." Rhodes complained, "If it's so tightly covered, why do you use sleep magic every time you come to the guild?" This guy was overly cautious. Not only was he wearing a turban and mask, but his arms and calves were also wrapped in bandages, making him look like he had been seriously injured. Just to be on the safe side, Mira blinked. "I thought you could understand." "How is it possible to understand? Am I being classified as one of the weirdos by you?" "It's not me who is dividing, it's everyone." Mira smiled. "And even if you are a weirdo, you are a reliable weirdo." "Let's talk about Mist Gang. Does he always take on difficult missions?" Rhodes knew that Mira had not personally handed over to Mist Gang, but she had the mission record. And if you like gossip so much, you will definitely pay extra attention. "No, there are more ordinary tasks." Sure enough, Mira knew. She thought about it and said, "Sometimes he takes on some tasks that are far away, but the pay is not high for him. It feels like he is deliberately trying to do it. It's like going far away." Rhodes guessed. Is he a person who likes to travel? He wants to take advantage of the mission to travel around the country or something. Mira shook her head slightly. But after the festival, when you and Gray were away, he seemed to have been near Magnolia, and there was no pattern at all. Has he ever teamed up with anyone? Not at all. I've always been a loner. It feels like there is some big secret hidden there. Rhodes felt that such a mysterious figure would not wander around aimlessly. Maybe he was looking for someone important through the mission, just like Natsu. If you pay more attention to strange things near the city recently, you may be able to discover them. But the idea of traveling around the country just now is very good. If he gets stronger, maybe he can do that, go on a trip through a mission, and invite Mira to form a fixed team or something. Chapter 135. Mira asks what is he doing. Rhodes was unsure. It always feels like someone is looking at us. Have you noticed the strange eyes? Mira shook her head and said as usual, "There are a lot of looks, but I don't think it's weird at all." Rhodes suddenly realized, "Oh, I almost forgot that there is a big star next to me that everyone is eyeing." "Yes, that's it." Mira put on airs and put on a cold expression. "Do you want an autograph?" "I want it, but I didn't bring my signature book." "Just sign it and don't wash your hands when you go back." Rhodes stretched out his hand towards her. "You said something strange again." Mira slapped Rhodes' hand off and signed it. "Whatever." "Seriously, you are so used to other people's gazes that you won't even notice when bad people are staring at you, right?" "There are no bad people in the town," Mira said. "It's probably someone in the guild who wants to joke with you." "That's not impossible." Rhodes has a little understanding of how jealous he is now. Although nothing serious will happen, there is still a possibility that two geese will pop up along the way. Rhodes was just cautious along the way, but nothing happened. When he returned to the guild and started working, Rhodes suddenly wondered whether this unknown B************** D was deliberately trying to affect his mood, right? So vicious. Once you find out who it is, you will give him a good beating. In the afternoon, you will just do ordinary work and practice. During your free time, you will still go to the library to find some books to read. This time it is not limited to general knowledge books, but also novels, paintings, and other art-related books. After all, art is the embodiment of humanities in some aspects and an important way for the dissemination and development of humanities. Understanding art is one of the ways to understand the humanistic spirit of the world, and it is also an important step for him to integrate into the world. I'm definitely not worried that I won't be able to understand what others are doing when I go to the movies in the future. Yes, There are movies and various entertainment companies in this world. Rocky occasionally hooks up with female artists. Movies here are usually recorded and shown using professional movie magic crystals, and there is a cinema in Magnolia. Rhodes thought that when the time was right, he would invite Mira to take a look. When the time is not right, you can also ask her to take you to see it on the grounds that she doesn't understand, haven't seen it, or is curious. This is not urgent. In the evening, the two exercise together again. Mira seemed to be more serious when teaching Rhodes fighting skills, and even suggested that Rhodes fight with her. It is not difficult for Rhodes to defeat Mira now. He can just rely on magic power and strength to suppress her. But that would be meaningless, and it would be difficult to do it. Rhodes didn't use magic power and gesticulated with her like an ordinary person. In fact, it looked more like a routine in a martial arts scene. Moreover, when fighting with her, Rhodes couldn't let go at all. He couldn't just beat his buddy like he was fighting with Kana. After practicing for a while, Mira also felt a little embarrassed. Rhodes seemed unable to attack her vital parts. Why don't you wait until Elfman comes back and I'll teach you two at the same time? Good. It's better to be a sparring partner with Elfman. But in the middle of the night, while sleeping, Rhodes suddenly felt regretful and wished he could give himself a slap. I gave you a chance, but you didn't use it. Huh. Worm opened his little eyes in a daze. Did the master dream of delicious food? The next morning, Rhodes was about to go to the backyard for training when he was suddenly pulled away. Alzhack, Rhodes stopped and looked at the way he hesitated to speak, and asked, "What's wrong?" Arzak hesitated and said, "Are you free? I would like to buy you a drink." Okay. Rhodes thought the young man had something to do, so he sat down directly in front of the counter. "What would you like to drink?" "No, not here. Let's change places." Alzak pulled Rhodes out. "Hey." Rhodes was pulled away by him, turned around and shouted inside, "Mira, let me go out for a moment." Mira smiled and waved to him, but then she always felt that something was wrong. Chico's coffee shop. Rhodes took a small spoon and stirred it in the coffee cup and said depressedly, "Why do you suddenly come to a place like this?" Arzak said, "I think it's quieter here." "I'm sorry. Don't you like coffee?" "It's not about the coffee." Rhodes looked at the guests around him. There were couples at the front table and couples at the back table. "Don't you think it looks weird for the two of us to sit here?" Arzak just realized this problem. "Then let's change positions?" "Forget it. Let's leave it at that." Rhodes said, "Why is it so mysterious?" Arzak said, "I have some questions and I want to ask you." Rhodes looked at him, indicating that you said, "I am listening." Arzak asked a little embarrassedly, "How did you manage to invite Mira out on a date?" "So naturally." Rhodes was wary and even wanted to turn against him. "You also want to invite Mira?" No. It's not Mira, it's... Arzak was too shy to say it. He thought for a moment, drank the coffee in one sip, and then said as if he had gained courage, "It's Biska. I want to ask Biska out." Oh, Rhodes relaxed, and in his excitement he almost forgot that Alzak was secretly in love with Biska. "But you should ask Loki about how to woo a girl, right?" Mentioning Loki, Arzak said with some discomfort, I asked after the festival, and the guy told me to go and confess directly. To be precise, it was after the Miss Fairy Tale beauty pageant that I realized that I was becoming more and more concerned about Biska. So I asked Rocky, "But how can ordinary people do such a direct confession? And then that be asterisk. D. Loki actually said." Alzak pounded the table. "He actually said that if I don't go, then he will pursue Biska." The names changed from Loki to that guy, and then to that be asterisk. D. Rhodes clearly felt the changes in Arzak's emotions. But Loki said this, no matter what, it was just to encourage Alzak to have the courage to confess his love, right? But not only did it have no effect, but it actually made Alzak regard him as his love rival. But we can't blame Alzak for misunderstanding. The main reason is that Loki dared to chase Erza. Anyone who had been in Alzak's position would have been embarrassed. Arzak may have been suffering from coffee, and he kept complaining. You also know that Loki is very good at pursuing girls. I'm worried about him. I can't even concentrate when I go out to work recently. The case was solved. Rhodes suddenly remembered what the president said. It turns out that Loki's fault for Alzak's recent stabbings was of course, he also had some problems of his own. Since you are worried, why don't you go and confess to Biska? I'm so distressed just because I can't do it. Arzak scratched his hair, and his black hair was messed up by him. That's why I want to ask you. How can I confess naturally, or not confess at all? There is also progress in the relationship. Rhodes understood his troubles and said helplessly, "But I have never been in love." Erza looked at him strangely. "Aren't you and Mira talking?" Rhodes smiled and said, "Although I'm happy you said that, strictly speaking it hasn't started yet." Erza said, "But yesterday you went out on a date together, talking and joking. It's no different from lovers. At most, you didn't hold hands." Ha ha ha. Rhodes almost laughed out loud. Erza really knows how to talk. Huh. Rhodes slapped the table and stood up. "How do you know such details?" Chapter 136. The customers in the store looked towards them, and the two of them apologized quietly to the person who had been disturbed. Rhodes sat down and continued to glare at Erza. Erza apologized decisively. I'm sorry, I just wanted to see how you did it, so I followed you. I promise not to do it again in the future." Rhodes wondered. "Then why haven't I found you after searching for so long? Even Mira didn't notice you." Erza said sheepishly, "Well, because I'm good at gun magic, the best tactic is to defeat the enemy from a long distance. So in order to cooperate with the battle, I have mastered some skills in concealment and observation." Concealment and observation? Are you sure you haven't practiced tracking and peeping skills? Rhodes thought for a while, and it seemed that he could also master this skill. Erza raised his finger. "I promise this is the first time it has been used for such a thing. It is also the last time." "Thank you," Rhodes said angrily. "You followed me, Luo, for the first time. Do we still have to thank you?" As a result, he spent a lot of his attention looking for peepers in the second half of the journey. Wouldn't it be nice to look at Mira more for a while? Erza was right, and he asked for help, and he apologized a lot, and also opened the menu, indicating that Rhodes could click casually. Today, Rhodes recognized it even if he ordered a copy of Erza. The worst he could do was to be detained by his boss and wait for Chiku to come back from the guild to beg her. Rhodes couldn't be that ruthless and only ordered 3 more expensive desserts, 1 for dine-in and 2 for takeout. Seeing Erza's distressed expression, the stalking incident was revealed. Desserts made by prostitutes taste delicious. Only then did Erza bring the topic back to the emotional aspect. Rhodes actually had nothing to do about it, and he didn't quite understand what Erza was thinking. If you like Bisca, just take the initiative to talk to her and invite her out to eat or go shopping, right? If you can't speak directly, just make an excuse, such as, "My cat can do backflips, do you want to come and take a look?" However, saying this is not helpful to Erza at all, because the most difficult thing for him is to speak. How about you write a letter? You can always write out everything you want to say when you can't see her, right? Erza said dejectedly, "I can't do it. Just think of writing a letter to her, and it's like seeing her standing in front of you." This is an amazing imagination. In the legend, seeing a character is like meeting someone, right? Moreover, seeing one's own character meets the person one wants to meet. Then what do you want? Do you want Bisca to take the initiative to talk to you? If it can be done. Erza felt that this was a bit much, and he asked, "How did you and Mira start?" "Actually, Mira and I haven't started yet." Rhodes saw the disbelieving look on Erza's face and had no choice but to say, "If I have to say it, it's been since I just woke up in the guild and was our ****D by her. Care begins. Then you can't go to the forest and be attacked by wild beasts and be picked up by the president, and then the president happens to have something to do and leave you to Bisca to take care of you, right? Is this so?" Erza held his chin and started to think seriously. "Hey, wake up. This young man is hopeless." Rhodes thought about his experience carefully and said, "I have been taken care of by Mira since I entered the guild. We work together and we chat a lot. If you have to say that there was a little bit of progress, it should be when you first went out to work, right?" Rhodes himself was not sure. "Anyway, I felt a little closer since then, and whether it was asking her out to eat or something else, there would always be a suitable reason. So, you can think about it a little longer and invite her to form a team." When talking about forming a team, Erza became even more depressed. "I just got into trouble recently, and the president asked me to take a good rest." "Oh, this seems to be my fault." Rhodes tasted the sweet cake and felt a little guilty. "That's just right. Use this time to save some courage and look for a suitable mission." Rhodes tried to make up for it. "I will also help you pay attention. If you are still unable to open your mouth at the end of the month, I will help you." Erza became happy. "Great. Thank you, Rhodes. You are indeed the most reliable summoner." "Does this have anything to do with summoner?" "Come on." Rod went back with 2 packaged desserts to share with Mira, and Mira invited him to drink the new drink prepared by Mr. Cook. Rhodes gained joy, and Erza gained hope. Everyone has a bright future. After that day, Rhodes would observe the results of Alzac's courage every day. This observation was observed at the end of the month. This guy is in trouble. Rhodes is already learning how to fly in the form of a sharp-beaked bird. He doesn't even have the courage to take a step forward. It was delayed until October 31st, when Alzac came to Rhodes for help.
Alas.
Rhodes sighed and looked at Makarov. President, I want to team up with Alzac for a mission. Okay, no problem. Makarov, who was originally drowsy, suddenly became energetic and asked, when will we set off? Do you want to borrow a magic book or a magic crystal? Rhodes looked at him with vacant eyes. Do you really want to drive me out? Ha ha ha, it's nothing. I just feel that Alzac's rest time is long enough. Makarov would not admit that he wished that there would be one less person in the guild restricting his drinking. It's the mission to arrest the bandit gang, so you don't need to bring the magic book or anything like that. Makarov's face lit up with joy. Has Rhodes changed his temper? You don't need to bring too much. Okay, this thing is not that easy to change. Makarov nodded. It's up to you. Mira, what's the specific situation? Information says that there are more than 60 people in the bandit gang. Isn't it too much to just have 2 people? Mira winked at Rhodes, telling him not to just think about exploding the magic crystal, but to remember to say something. Rhodes nodded. It seems, is there a magician in the guild who is compatible with the 2 of us? Alzac probably didn't react before. Didn't we agree to team up with Biska? Why did we change into a team? When he heard that he wanted to form a group with others, he quickly looked at Mira with expectant eyes. Bizika, Bizika. Arzac recited the names he wanted to hear most in his heart, wishing he could learn the magic of reciting words immediately and convey them directly to Myra's mind. The place occupied by the bandits has steep terrain, so long-distance attacks are more suitable. Mira saw the joy on Arzac's face and immediately changed the subject. But you 2 have long-distance attack magic. So why not find Natsu and Happy, who can supplement their melee abilities and launch attacks from the air? Alzac's face turned red. It wasn't bad to team up with Naz and the others, but it was much different from what he expected. Rhodes was also wondering, why didn't he follow the script? Look at the evil smile on Myra's face. Oh, I understand. Rhodes said, it makes sense, but Natsu has been very diligent this month. It's time to take a rest, and teaming up with him is very tiring. Mira thought for a while. That's it. What about Gray? You have worked together before. He is very strong, and he has no problem with close combat or medium and long distances. Rhodes looked at her and tried to convey with his eyes. You haven't had enough fun yet? Alzac almost cried. Mira also looked at him and raised a finger to express it for the last time. Gray seems to have asked Loki to go on a mission together more than 10 days ago. Rhodes sighed, as if he was sorry. Just find someone who is good at long-distance combat. My melee combat skills are just fine. Then, let's ask Biska. Mira finally said the name that Alzac wanted to hear. She hasn't gone out to work for a week. Maybe she's worried about the rent. Makarov watched several young people pulling back and forth, and for a while he didn't understand what they were playing. When did Mira recommend others to form a team and start helping think about tactics? Chapter 137. Of course that script was discussed in advance. After all, Rhodes had previously promised to team up with Elfman if there was a suitable opportunity. If you suddenly want to help Arzac, you must tell Mira. It just so happened that Mira also wanted to help the president reduce his worries, so she supported Rhodes' actions. So there was another gossip to read. It was just that when she was reading the lines on the spot, Mira suddenly felt that Arzac's reaction was very interesting, so she made slight changes. As for Rhodes, it doesn't affect the outcome anyway, and he's happy to play with her. As for whether Biska will agree to it, it's not a big problem. Rhodes investigated in advance. Actually, it was mainly Myra's investigation, and he occasionally listened in. Anyway, they have confirmed with some girls that Biska is also interested in Alzac, and the chance of success is very high. Of course, an episode during the investigation was also scary. It was when she asked Erza, is there anyone Biska cares about more? Erza thought seriously for a minute and gave an answer. Yes, it's Rhodes. Rhodes almost suffered cardiac arrest at that time. Is it really okay to say this in front of Mira? Fortunately, she added. And Lita's. Mira looked at Rhodes's panic and found it a bit funny and asked why. Because Biska likes animals. She likes the poros, wolves, and birds summoned by Rhodes. Then, she also likes the animals drawn by Lita's. Ah, that's not what we're asking about. Mira realized that Erza might not be too sensitive about this aspect, so she didn't say any more. I heard Lucky say that Biska seemed to has her room been transformed into a zoo? Yes, she has a lot of cute animals. The two talked about Biska's zoo room with great interest, and Rhodes felt a lingering fear. So much so that he realized later that the girls' dormitory had such a high tolerance for room modifications. For example, Levi transformed into a library, Lucky. Not to mention, Erza opened 5 rooms, and Biska even raised large animals directly. I can't even dream of having such a landlord. Rhodes retracted his thoughts. Mira had already waved towards the tavern. Biska, can you come over here? The beauty with long green hair pointed at herself and confirmed with Mira. After seeing her nod, Biska put down her legs, stood up neatly, and walked towards the counter. Rhodes elbowed Alzak back to tell him to pay attention to his image. Alzak stood up straight and tried not to stare at Biska. Biska's eyes stayed on the faces of the president and Rhodes for a second, and on Alzak's face for a second before looking away a little unnaturally. Then she gently brushed the hair beside her ears. What's the matter, Mira? Well, there is a mission for which Rhodes and Alzak have decided to team up and want to invite you to join them. Mira deliberately omitted who wanted to invite her and looked at Biska. I think your styles match well. What did Biska think? Since you said so. Biska was actually very personal about who wanted to invite her. If you think about it carefully, you can first rule out Rhodes. I feel that if Rhodes messes up, he will be killed. And the man and woman were killed together. Then the person who really wanted to invite her was... Biska glanced at Arzak and immediately avoided it as soon as their eyes came into contact. I'll join. Although she was also shy, Biska was much more decisive than Alzak. He was so decisive that he didn't even ask about the mission content. Mira and Rhodes looked at each other and shared the same Ani smile. Rhodes scolded Alzak again and motioned for him to explain the mission content. As a result, the guy hesitated and held back a sentence. Juan, welcome to join. Biska was embarrassed by his reaction. Thank you. Mira had to hold back her laughter and explained the task clearly to Biska. Biska nodded. No problem. When will we set off? This time Rhodes did not expect Alzak to answer and said to himself, we tentatively plan to leave at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, arrive around noon, and meet the client after booking a hotel. Then reconnoiter the terrain, enemy distribution, etc., and then decide whether to take action at night or wait until the early morning to raid. This is just a rough arrangement. See if there is any problem with your time. I have no problem, Biska said. Arzak followed. Me too. Rhodes nodded. Then it's settled. Let's make good preparations today and gather at the guild gate tomorrow morning. Biska said hello to the president and Mira respectively and turned to leave the guild. There were indeed some things in her dormitory that needed to be dealt with first. Arzak was also about to leave when Rhodes suddenly asked, did Biska not pay for her drink? Arzak seemed to have been immobilized. Mira smiled and said, I have already given it. The immobilization method is lifted. But... Alzak paused again. No, it seems to be nothing. Makarov could hardly stand it anymore. You too. Okay, let's get down to business. Rhodes said, Alzak, should I get sick tomorrow and you two go alone? Alzak was very moved. This is nothing more than a real brother, right? Although he teased him a little. Stop joking, Rhodes. Makarov looked at him. Since you have accepted the task, you must complete it well. The same goes for Arzak. It's time to cheer up this time, right?
Yes.
Arzak agreed honestly. The trouble he got into hasn't passed yet, so he must perform well this time. I understand, President. I will be very serious. It was the first time to go with them. It would be better to wait until I get sick next time. Rhodes responded. Although the target was just an ordinary bandit, he would not be careless. All necessary preparations will be made, and we will be as cautious as if we were dealing with the Dark Guild. That's not necessary. Makarov wanted to say that, but forget it. There's nothing wrong with being cautious. Speaking of preparations, Rhodes was a little troubled. President, do you know how to learn to fly quickly? Like a bird. Makarov knew that Rhodes was studying his bird form. Why don't you ask Happy? Mira should also understand. It's different. Rhodes shook his head. Of course he had asked about Mira and Happy, but the situation with wings growing on their backs was different from him. After he receives the sharp beak bird, he will turn into a birdman, not like Xia and Luo and LOL, but like Yun Zhongjuan in a certain mobile game. He has red feathers sprouting from his arms to serve as wings. Different from the earth escape magic that is instinctive after receiving the stone beetle, flying is strictly a kind of physical skill. It requires Rhodes to flap his wings and learn it. In comparison, It is not difficult to throw feathers as flying knives. At most, the accuracy is not good. There are several ways to call Mira. The unfamiliar ones are called Mira Jane and Miss Mira Jane. The more familiar ones are called Miss Mira. The more familiar ones are called Mira and Sister Mira, and Elfman calls her sister. Lee Sana called Sister Mira and Brother Alf. And the most shameless thing is that Wakaba would call Mira-chan, but this title was cruelly banned by the author. Chapter 138. On a late autumn morning, the warmth brought by the bright sunshine is easily taken away by the blowing autumn wind. The slender-looking cirrus clouds in the sky were completely unmoved by the breeze on the ground. Only the yellow leaves on the trees on both sides of the street would briefly swim with the wind. As a qualified wingman, Rhodes did not set off in advance, but consciously stepped over. Originally, he wanted to give the two people more time to be alone together, but when he arrived at the guild, Alzak and Biska were standing dumbfounded more than a meter apart. Biska held a sniper rifle on the ground and rotated it in a circle from time to time. Arzak's hand habitually rested on the holster at his waist and occasionally scratched his cheek with his index finger. Both sides would occasionally glance at each other and then quickly look back, for fear of being discovered. I don't know where he learned the secret and observation skills that Alzak mentioned. The two people stood at the entrance of the guild, like two door gods, one with the title I don't know and the other with the name Bewildered. Rhodes sighed and stepped forward to break the awkward atmosphere. I'm sorry I'm late. No. Alzak and Bizika spoke at the same time, stopped at the same time, looked at each other and neither spoke. Rhodes looked at them helplessly. Finally, Biska continued. We came early, the time is just right. Arzak, yes. The time for Rhodes' arrival was just right in every sense of the word. If this continued, he would not be able to help but run away. Then let's go. Rhodes waved towards the guild at the door, and after seeing the desired response, he asked the two of them to leave. The two shy people followed Rhodes step by step, with a distance of more than 1 meter, and they looked very much like the two guardians. This doesn't work, it's too embarrassing. Rhodes thought for a moment and asked, let's go by carriage. Which one do you usually like to rent? An ordinary 2-horse carriage. Biska said, I like horses. In fact, if possible, I would rather ride a horse. Rhodes took a look at Biska's outfit. It was a cowboy style that matched well with Alzak. It's a pity that Alzak didn't answer a word, Rhodes said. Looking at how quiet you usually are in the tavern, you turn out to be such a cool person. No wonder you have such a good relationship with Erza. Biska said with some embarrassment. That's not the reason. In fact, I met Erza before joining the guild. Biska talked about how she met Erza and the opportunity to join the guild. When Alzak saw Rhodes listening to Biska's words carefully, he felt a sense of superiority. Ha ha ha, I already knew how Biska joined the guild. But Rhodes didn't understand at all. Rhodes glanced at Alzak. The child was hopeless. You should ask her a few questions. Does knowing whether she knows or not affect you in asking her? Can the things you hear from others be the same as what you ask her yourself? You look like you are not interested in her at all. Rhodes was so tired. He listened carefully to Biska's words and said with a smile, you actually pretended to be a mage from our guild before you were beaten to death by Erza. Biska was also a little scared and said with a smile, because at that time, I didn't understand what a guild meant. I just thought that fairy tale had a great reputation and was very majestic. And because I was an immigrant from the Western continent and had no skills to make a living, I had no choice but to pretend to be a magician and get food and drinks. Now that I think about it, it seems to have tarnished the guild a lot. No. Rhodes shook his head. Thinking about it now, just eating the king's meal, collecting protection money, and being a bully is actually not too slanderous. Rhodes looked at the guy next to him who only knew silence and giggles, and decided to give him a hand. Where's Alzak? Oh, by the way, like Biska, he is an immigrant from the Western continent. Rhodes was a little relieved to finally know how to say, just like Biska. It wasn't until Alzak finished telling his story that he asked, actually, when going to Soundfloor Village, you can take the train to Ana Baysai first, and then change to a carriage, which will save some time, right? Rhodes was silent for a moment and replied, because you two are carrying guns, it is easy to scare other passengers on the train. Biska wanted to say that she used the magic of changing clothes. She just felt that the sniper rifle looked more handsome when she held it in her hand, and she could save it back at any time. But she was obviously a little better than Arzak and agreed. It is indeed more convenient to take the carriage directly. Seeing that Biska had said this, Alzak nodded quickly. Yeah, to Rhodes. Next time, whoever wants to do this kind of work can do it, but I won't do it anyway. No need to add money. The three of them rented a carriage. Rhodes got on the carriage first and put his bag on the seat next to Alzak before he could sit next to him. He also didn't expect that the seat-occupying skills he had been practicing since he was in college would actually come in handy today. Arzak sat awkwardly with Biska, not knowing where to put his hands. Biska was not much better, and there was a gap deliberately left between the two. Rhodes chose to have fun, holding on to the window frame inadvertently, smiling and waiting for the carriage to start. Really? Yes, I'm sorry. Arzak hurriedly sat back down, his posture as regular as a primary school student in the presence of school leaders. No, it's okay. Biska straightened her hair and told herself in her heart that this was a normal thing. Sure enough, as soon as the car moved, the two unprepared people bumped into each other, and they blushed at the same time. Rhodes found it very interesting. A stranger would not feel embarrassed if he touched her like this, and a familiar person would not feel uncomfortable if he touched her like this. It just so happens that he is the kind of person who has a vague affection and will blush at the slightest physical contact. Although I am not qualified to say it myself, it is interesting to see others do this. Rhodes thought it would be more interesting if Mira was there to watch the fun together. It is now 8:11 in the morning, the 11th minute since Rhodes left the guild, and he misses her a little. The guild has been busy for a while. Mira wiped the counter again and put down the rag to rest. I wonder how Alzak and Biska get along, Lucky said narrowly. Sister Mira, are you thinking about Alzak and Biska, or the person who formed a team with them? Don't talk nonsense. Mira threw the rag. Of course it's Alzak and Biska. I feel like their reactions on the road will be interesting. I feel like those two are a good match. Lucky smiled and caught the rag. It looked clean, so she simply continued to use it to clean the table. Mira held her chin and looked at the entrance of the guild. The people watching. Alzak and Biska must be very happy now. Chapter 139. Sunflower Village, also called Sunflower Village, is located in the northeast of Magnolia, not far from the Kroba Canyon near the border of the Kingdom of Fiori. However, the client of this mission was not the head of Sunflower Village, the village closest to the bandits' den, but a joint commission from several nearby villages and towns. It is difficult for a small village to satisfy the appetite of dozens of bandits, so several nearby villages and towns and passing merchants may become their targets. The nearby villagers couldn't bear the disturbance, so they all paid for magicians to destroy them. In fact, this should have been the job of the city garrison, or more broadly, it could also be the job of the border garrison. However, the country of Fiori is a permanently neutral country. It may be because of the long-lasting peace, or it may be because of the prevalence of magic. As a result, the ordinary army does not receive enough attention, and its combat effectiveness is really not very good. Normally, there is no problem in maintaining law and order in the town, but it is a bit difficult for them to go into the mountains to fight against bandits, especially this kind of bandit who is entrenched in steep mountainous areas. The villagers had no choice but to place their hope in the magicians of the regular guild. At this time, the three magicians who accepted the commission had just paid their travel expenses and found a hotel in the town. The boss said there are only 2 rooms left today. Rhodes said, I can't help it. I'll stay in 1 room. How about you two squeeze in? Alzak and Biska's faces turned as red as lanterns. Squeeze, 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 squeeze into 1 room? This. The 2 people were speechless, and white smoke almost appeared above their heads. The 2 got along very well along the way, and now they no longer deliberately keep such a long distance. But suddenly asking to live in 1 room was obviously beyond their psychological capacity. Ha 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 ha. Rhodes couldn't stop laughing. It took a while for the 2 of them to realize. Normally, Alzak and Rhodes should sleep in the same room, right? Hey Rod, how can you make such a joke casually? Biska spoke in an angry tone, which automatically turned into shyness as she spoke. Arzak then said, No, that's right. Ha ha ha, sorry ha. Rhodes tried his best to suppress his voice put your luggage here first. The 3 of them put away their things and went out to meet the client. Rhodes became serious the moment he walked out of the hotel. Although I have a certain understanding of it before, I still want to introduce my magic. The first is summoning magic. The wild monsters I can summon are, their specialties are, and then the magic is received. The current forms are, in short, you can leave the reconnaissance work to me, and if you need my cooperation during the battle, you're welcome. Alzak and Biska were both a little dazed. Although they usually understood something, they didn't pay too much attention. Now that I hear it, Rhodes' abilities are a bit too comprehensive. Reconnaissance, transportation, search, defense, retreat, close combat, and even poisoning. Recently, I am also studying how to fly into the sky. He didn't even know magic when he first joined the guild, right? How can a person grow to this point in 4 months? Don't be in a daze, it's up to you. Oh, Erza came back to his senses. He pulled out the pistol on his waist and performed a beautiful trick. What I am good at is bullet magic. With this gun, I can shoot tranquilizer bombs, flash bombs, smoke bombs, electric shock bombs, explosive bombs, and hurricane bombs at any time. For me, street fighting and various complex terrains are the best battlefields. Erza, who picked up a gun, was completely different from usual. When he talked about magic, he seemed to radiate confidence, making his temperament very attractive. Biska was obviously the one attracted to him. Rhodes waited for 3 seconds and reminded, "Where is Biska?" "Well, I use the same type of dress-up magic as Erza. If her magic is called Knight, then my magic should be called Gunner da." Biska put the sniper rifle in her hand on her shoulder, looking very much like her on the stage that day. My fighting style is to equip different firearms according to different environments and needs. If I have to talk about my specialty, I prefer to defeat the enemy as far away as possible. Rhodes nodded. Although they both used magic firearms, one tended to change bullets and was good at mid-range and long-range combat, while the other tended to change guns and liked super long-range sniping the most. This mission was chosen very well. It is very suitable for these two people to fight together. Mira and I were worthy of choosing it together. The three of them went to see the client, but unfortunately the other party failed to provide more effective information. Rhodes inquired for a while and only learned the general direction of the bandit stronghold and that the other party might have magic items. The rest is up to you to investigate on your own. Alzak watched Rhodes release the river crabs and shadow wolves and said, "I can also help with covert reconnaissance." Biska also said, "I have no problem with disguise and concealment. Let's wait for now. We are in the search stage now. We will wait until we find their lair." Rhodes opened his backpack, took out a map, pen and paper, and connected the river crab's field of view to quickly record the general terrain. He also observed whether there were dangerous poisonous weeds and insects, and marked the locations of paths that might be convenient for passage. After thinking about it, he took out 2 more books from his backpack and gave them to Alzak and Biska. "Take this, you will be prepared." The two people had complicated expressions on their faces, and they casually took out a brief map of the local area, but they even brought a magic book with them. Be well prepared. The two of them watched as Rhodes marked locations on the map that were conducive to ambush, and wrote down lines of valuable terrain information on the paper, as well as possible ways to use them. Biska sighed. "It's like a fairy strategist." Arzak seemed to have never heard of this title. "What is that?" "This is the title of the first-generation President Mavis. She is a genius who uses her superb mind to analyze intelligence, make the best plan, and then lead her companions to victory." Biska recalled for a moment and said, "I heard that the guild has experienced many wars and won every time with her tactics, so she is called the fairy strategist." Alzak said in surprise, "Isn't that what Rhodes is doing now? And I seem to have heard Gray complain before that Rhodes could easily take out a foot-thick plan, and it would be exhausting just to read it." Biska nodded. "That's why I said that Rhodes is like a fairy strategist born in our generation. It's not that exaggerated. That be asterisk 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 D. Gray is also spreading rumors about me." Rhodes found depressingly that he seemed to be constantly being spread rumors. The first-generation president was able to memorize all the enemy's information in his mind, analyze the enemy's strength, magic, and action patterns, and even conduct simulated battles in his mind. Then after massive calculations, he speculated on various possible directions of the battlefield, formulated the tactics with the highest winning rate, and led everyone to victory step by step. And I can only write and draw on paper, make a few simple battle plans, and deal with a few enemies with low IQ, which is far behind the goblin strategist. Rhodes heard Levy tell the story of Mavis, the first president, and he knew his own weight. The biggest battle he ever commanded was a 5v5 team battle. That's not right. The battle with the largest scale and the largest number of people he had ever experienced was called the Glory of the Republic. But that thing is a shitty commander, and with his little brains, how can he compare it to the first-generation humanoid computer? Useless trivia. Most cities and villages in Fairy Tale like to be named after flowers. For example, Magnoliaceae is Magnolia, and Rocker's Crocus is Red Crocus. So when I compiled place names, I basically used plant names. For example, the Dendrobium village in Danjubiamu is the Dendrobium village, and the Silvervine in the Hiruval village where Windy is located, mainly because I couldn't find the name in the original book. the place name of the village where Cat's Lodge is located. And this time the Sunflower in Soundfloor Village, this naming style is generally more in line with the fairy tale. Worldview. Chapter 140. But just looking at the key points that Rhodes drew after listing the information has already been of great help to them, especially Biska. As a sniper, being able to quickly find a suitable sniper position is already half the battle. And Rhodes just sent out wild monsters and quickly marked one location after another suitable for hiding. Yes, Rhodes felt that a shadow wolf returned to Summoner's Canyon on its own initiative. He immediately summoned the shadow wolf again and began to ask, "Did you find a person or a stronghold? When talking about people, stretch out your left hand, and when talking about strongholds, stretch out your right hand." The shadow wolf stretched out his claws and touched his right hand first, then his left hand. Question mark. Rhodes thought for a while. Did we find the stronghold and then there is someone in the stronghold? Shadow wolf nodded. Okay, it's quite rigorous. I simply asked which mountaintop it was on, but it couldn't be described no matter how complicated the question was. Rhodes thought about whether to try to teach Shadow Wolf to write. He sent back all the wild monsters who were searching the mountain, summoned the river crabs again, and let the two river crabs follow the Shadow Wolf one step ahead. Arzak asked, "Aren't we going?" Rhodes thought for a while and said, "Let's go too. I can connect the vision of the canyon swift crab and lead the way. You two are responsible for guarding both sides and the back." Okay? Alzak nodded. "No problem." Biska raised her sniper rifle and looked around. "It happens to be what I'm good at." There were two professional gunmen on guard duty, which made Rhodes feel relieved. Thinking of Natsu's fighting sense, Gray's modeling speed, and Warren's citywide announcements, Rhodes felt that maybe everyone in the guild had a unique skill. This unique skill may not be reflected in combat, but in their respective professional fields, they may be among the best in the country. Speaking of which, our fairy tale is one of the strongest guilds in the country. Rhodes wondered if he should also develop a specialty. You can't be asked by others. Everyone has a best in the world. What is your best in the world? He replied, "My wife is the most beautiful in the country." This is inappropriate, but it seems pretty cool. The precipitous terrain that Mira said before coming here is indeed true. Although it is not as high as a cliff, it is indeed very difficult to walk. Fortunately, the three of them are not ordinary people. Regardless of clinging to others, there will always be a way. While Rhodes leads the way, he will also be responsible for opening the way. When encountering a place that is difficult to climb, he can use the partial reception of the Shadow Wolf to transform into a wolf claw and carve out a small pit for the two people behind him to use. Occasionally, I will try to partially absorb the ancient stone beetle to see if it is easier to dig holes with wolf claws or stone gauntlets. Alzak and Biska followed Rhodes at a short distance. The more Biska walked, the more she felt that it was great to team up with Rhodes, who could even take care of such small things. Alzak also felt that it was great to team up with Rhodes, because they occasionally needed to help each other during the mountain climbing process. And Rhodes deliberately stayed so far away from them, so he and Biska were the only ones helping each other. Mountain climbing is one of the best outdoor activities to bring people closer together. The three of them quickly climbed over the top of the mountain and carefully walked through the saddle between the two peaks. The bandits' lair was not far away. "There's a situation." Biska held the sniper rifle and looked into the distance through the scope. Rhodes and Alzak stopped advancing and guarded her on both sides. Alzak looked in the direction Biska was looking at. "That's a carriage. Is it a merchant?" Rhodes looked into the distance. There were yellow and green woods on the top of the mountain and a winding road at the bottom of the mountain. It was not the way they came, but the road on the other side. Looking at it from this distance, the street trees on the roadside have become a patchwork of yellow. Where are the carriages? It's bandits who are blocking the road and robbing people. Biska frowned. She was about to take action, but she still asked, "Road? I can't see that far. It's up to you to judge." At such a long distance, Rhodes could only summon the sharp-beaked birds and let them fly over as quickly as possible. Before the sharp-beaked birds arrived, they could only rely on their companions. Biska stared at the target location. There are 10 bandits. A large-scale attack may hurt innocent people. If you use the sharpshooter, you can kill 6 of them in one go, but leave the rest to me. It's a bit difficult to use a pistol at this distance. Do you have a spare sniper rifle? When it comes to tasks, Arzak speaks much more eloquently than on the carriage, and his words are full of confidence. Change your clothes. Biska didn't even move her hands when a sniper rifle appeared beside her. Arzak caught it accurately and raised his gun beside her. Answer the call, ancient stone beetles. Rhodes summoned a group of stone beetles and told them to lie on the ground. It helped a lot. The two of them set up the sniper rifle on the back of the stone beetle, which was very good and stable. The 6 on the right belong to me. I'll take the 4 on the left. The two simply assigned the task, counted down 3 seconds in tacit agreement, and pulled the trigger together. Sniper sharpshooter. A small green magic circle appeared at the muzzle of Biska's gun, and 6 magic bullets were fired at the same time, hitting the target accurately. Sniper electric shock combo. Artsak's magic is slightly different. He actually shoots 4 times. It's just that the magic loading speed is very fast. Almost as soon as one bullet flies out of the muzzle, the other one has been loaded. 4 bandits were shot one after another and fell to the ground with golden arcs flashing on their bodies. Solved. Alzak and Biska high-fived. Then he immediately started blushing again. Biska, your marksmanship is so good. You too. Rhodes wanted to give them a bottle of Yida. I'm going to see the owner of that carriage and at least get him out of this area safely. Rhodes said, are you on guard here? If you encounter an enemy, no problem. Alzak patted the stone beetle on the back. With them, there will be no problem in encountering any number of enemies. Biska also said, yes, this is called an ancient stone beetle, right? It's great for the shooter to partner with them. What gunman wouldn't like a bunker that can understand commands, can move at will, and may be harder than stone? What's more, they can also use a little earth magic to lead people to evacuate under the ground at any time. The two of them really envied Rhodes for having such a convenient summoned beast. They even wanted to form a permanent team with Rhodes, without him doing anything else. They could just borrow stone beetles for each battle and watch from behind. Okay then, be careful. Rhodes stretched out his arm. Receive the shadow wolf. Rhodes transformed into a werewolf and jumped and ran quickly through the mountains and forests, heading towards the direction of the carriage. In fact, he wanted to change into the form of a sharp-beaked bird and fly down, but his flying ability was about the same as that of an old domestic hen. I feel like attaching a pair of fake wings to a cat can fly better than it can, so it's not embarrassing. Chapter 141. The two people next to the carriage were a businessman and a driver and porter. The businessman is now scared. He has long heard that there may be bandits nearby, but he is not willing to hire a magician to protect him. This trip almost put him in trouble and even almost cost him all his money. The driver was also afraid. It was so miserable to meet a stingy boss, and he was almost hacked to death by bandits. Mr. Bania, are we leaving? Wait a minute. I'm sure the wizard did it just now. Let's wait for him to come over. Bania's hands were shaking a little, but there was a shrewd light in his eyes. Wasn't there going to be a guard soon? The two waited for a while, and suddenly saw a gray shadow approaching quickly in the forest, followed by a werewolf suddenly coming. Fell in front of them. Yellow-brown eyes stared at them, and the fangs in his mouth seemed to be shining with cold light. Bania's two sides were almost ready to leave first. Fortunately, the werewolf spoke. Who are you? Bania breathed a sigh of relief. As long as he could speak. This must be a werewolf transformed by some magic. Mr. Sorcerer, we are businessmen passing through here, preparing to go to Wanba. We were almost hijacked by these bandits just now. Thank you for your help. Is there anything I can do for you? Where he was going actually had nothing to do with him. Rhodes nodded. If it's convenient, please help tie these people up. The driver was about to take action immediately, but was stopped by Bania. I see that you didn't bring any rope, but I happen to have one here. It's 30 meters long and only costs 600 J. Mr. Bania? The driver's eyes almost widened. Under such circumstances, he actually planned to sell the rope? How greedy is this man? Rhodes also looked at him in surprise. What a talent. At this time not forgetting to make money. It's just a bit annoying from his standpoint. No need. Rhodes remained in his werewolf state, kicking away the weapons in the hands of the bandits one by one, before returning to his human form and starting to tie them up. The rope used was the belt of the bandits. If you are fine, leave quickly and don't get in the way here. Rhodes' attitude is not that good. This kind of annoying person is the most troublesome. If they encounter danger again, they will feel unhappy if they are saved, and they will not be able to pass the test of conscience if they refuse to save them. It's better to drive away quickly. But Bania didn't want to leave like this. What if there were robbers ahead? Mr. Sorcerer, don't get me wrong. This rope can be given to you for free. Bania said enthusiastically. You will take these robbers to the city hall after you capture them, right? I mean, why don't you come with us? Not only will the rope be used for you, but you can also ride on the carriage as you like. The free ones may be the most expensive ones. Rhodes guessed without much thought that this person wanted to use him as a bodyguard for free. Rhodes refused. Sorry, I have other things to do, so I won't bother you. Bania quickly said, we can wait. And this person is really out of touch, and it doesn't make sense to talk rationally, so we can only talk about money. While Rhodes cut off the bandit's hands behind his back and tied them up, he said, Mr. Bania, short-distance escort missions usually require 2,000 to 10,000 J, improve as appropriate. And do you think it is so easy to hire magicians like me and my companions who can kill more than 10 enemies in an instant? It's just because it's not that easy to get one, so I want to get one for free. Not to mention he has a companion. It's a pity that the price. Bania struggled for a while. I'm sorry, I'm rude, let's just walk. A group of bandits have already been killed. It shouldn't be so easy to encounter the second group. If there are no guards, there will be no guards. The driver wanted to run away. He didn't know much about the market, but he conservatively estimated that even if he hired 10 or 8 wizards, he would still be able to make a profit. This Mr. Bania really wants money before his life. Next time, he must find a more timid boss. Rhodes tied up the 10 people one by one, then picked out the one who looked the most cowardly and took him to a place a little further away and splashed him with water to wake him up. Who are you? Let me go quickly, or our boss. A two-headed wolf bared its teeth and came up to him, scaring him so much that he quickly shut up. Tell me how many of you there are in total, whether there are any magicians among you, and whether there are any paths, traps, secret escape routes, etc. on the mountain. How could I tell you that kind of thing? If you don't tell me, just feed the wolves, they just haven't had lunch. Rhodes waved, and the two-headed wolf licked his cheeks from left to right and began to drool. The bandit swallowed his saliva and could feel the heat of the two-headed wolf on his face. I said, I advise you not to tell lies. I will wake up the others later to confirm. If you tell a lie, I will bite off one of your hands. Rhodes didn't understand interrogation techniques, but he had heard of the prisoner's dilemma somewhere, and he didn't know if that was what it meant. Anyway, after hearing this, the bandit became completely honest and told the whole story about the situation on the mountain like a bamboo tube. It's better to go to jail than to be fed to wolves by the man in front of you. After getting the information, Rhodes knocked out the person, woke him up again and asked the same question. After repeating it several times and getting basically the same answers, I went back to look for Alzak and Biska. These two people were very reliable. They held their guns meticulously. One was responsible for staring in the direction of Rhodes, and the other was responsible for guarding the surroundings. How's it going? Alzak looked at Rhodes and looked like he was interrogating. The number of people is about the same as what we know. Their boss can use a very destructive magic, and there are several traps on the road. Rhodes' voice paused. Biska became alert. What's wrong? A swift crab fell into the pit. It's not a big problem. The field of vision did not disappear, so Rhodes knew that it was not dead. The bandits may have been alerted. Prepare for a quick, decisive battle to prevent them from running away in advance. I have no problem. Alzak looked at Rhodes. Can your magic power hold up? Both receiving and summoning, Alzak remembered that Rhodes used magic many times today, and was still maintaining many summon beasts such as stone beetles, shadow wolves, sharp beaks, and swift crabs. Rhodes said, it won't be a big problem within 20 minutes. I can take back a few at my discretion. If it can be done without me doing it, of course it would be the best. Alzak and Biska looked at each other and said respectively, you've done enough work. It's up to us next. That said, Rhodes still planned to provide as much information as possible before the war. Then he sent a stone beetle to follow Biska to the sniper point, and he took 2 stone beetles to follow Alzak around various traps and approached the bandit stronghold. The bandit stronghold is not very big. There is a wooden house in the middle, with several thatched houses scattered around. A row of wooden fences were erected on the outside, and 2 arrow towers were erected at the door. There were a few soft pops. The bandit who was dozing at the door and the sentry on the arrow tower were shot and fell almost at the same time. Biska took action. Rhodes had already gone around to the back, preparing to block the bandits' escape route. And Arzak loaded a high-explosive bomb and blew open the door with a bang. The stronghold suddenly became lively, and the bandits shouted one after another. Enemy attack! Cole. Who is he? Boss. The army is coming. Chapter 142. It clearly looks like a pistol, but under his powerful bullet magic, it feels like a machine gun. By the time the bandits using bows, arrows, or firearms aimed at him, Alzak had already hid behind the stone beetle. Bows and arrows shot at stone beetles can only be bounced away, and ordinary firearms cannot cause much effective damage. Before they could carry out the second round of shooting, Biska had already named the opponent's gunmen one by one from a distance. Awesome, Biska. Even though the other party couldn't hear it, Alzak still praised it. Then he stepped out and knocked down the melee bandits who took the opportunity to approach one by one. The stone beetle listened to Alzak's instructions and walked away as soon as he was allowed to do so, and stopped as soon as he was asked to stop. By the way, you must always pay attention to the basic instructions given by Rhodes. When you see Alzak injured, drag him to escape. It's a wizard. There are snipers on the mountain opposite. It's such a long distance, are you kidding me? Too strong. What kind of monster is that moving stone? It was the first time for the bandits to encounter such a powerful enemy. The sentries and guards had no idea how they were missing. After seeing the enemy, I thought that there were many people on my side, but in the end, more than a dozen people fell down in one encounter. Just when he felt that he had suppressed fire, the gunman was already knocked down by a sniper who was hiding somewhere. I thought I could take this opportunity to rush over and stab the opponent, but in the end, 10 more people were lying down when they met for the second time. At least 2 powerful magicians, plus the unknown stone monster. The bandits were already trying to escape. A burly man came out of the middle wooden house with a staff in his hand and kicked down a bandit who tried to retreat. Trash. It's just a magician. Come to me. The bandit boss raised his staff. Leave the monster to me. You guys hack that guy to death. Boss, be careful. They have. Bang. The bandit boss fell to the ground, his staff clanking and rolling to the ground. The little bandit finished the last part of his sentence in a daze. There are snipers? The bandits knelt down, and Rhodes couldn't block anyone on the escape path behind the stronghold. When he entered the stronghold, Alzak raised his gun and watched as the bandits tied up their companions. Is it resolved so quickly? Rhodes' voice made the bandits tremble. There was a third such terrifying magician. Their movements are a bit more agile. We are just dozens of little bandits. How can we ask such powerful magicians like you to suppress them? Moreover, they also attacked from the front and back and carried external sniper rifles. I will confess, we also have a team of 10 people going down the mountain to rob. Yes. The ambush location is, Arzak said, they have been killed by us. Is there anyone else besides them? The bandits were dejected and a little sad and angry at the same time. They actually defeated them one by one. Do you think we are regular troops? After waiting for a while, Biska also rushed over, and the bandits had been tied up. Rod was checking the ropes one by one to see if they were playing any tricks. The bandits' faces were ashen. How dare we play tricks under such circumstances? Are you too cautious? Biska looked at the bandits who were almost turning gray and wondered, what's wrong with them? Have you completely lost your will to fight? Arzak hesitated and said with all his strength that the sniper shot just now was very beautiful. Ah, thank you. Bisilka was embarrassed to be praised by Alzak, but she was not like this in normal times. Your high-speed reloading and continuous shooting are beautiful, Alzak said in a panic. No, it's just that you practice better, Minnie. 2 quite shy people didn't know what to say or where to look after being complimented by each other. Rhodes secretly sighed. It has to be a knowledgeable person to praise others for their level. After seeing such a wonderful marksmanship like him, he could only say awesome. But it doesn't matter, as long as he knows how to praise his transformation magic and fighting skills teaching skills. Rhodes clapped his hands. Okay, while it's still early, let's take everyone who can walk down the mountain. I hope we can get back to the town before dark. When Alzak and Biska just fought, except for the blast of the door, they used magic bullets that had basically no lethality. It hurt a lot after being hit, but the effects were basically paralysis and fainting on the spot, so none of the bandits died. On the other hand, there are also those who are unlucky. The original target was not a vital part, but because of the random movement, they were seriously injured. There are many people injured in this way, so they can only be detained here first, and the town security team will go up to the mountain to pick them up later. Just in case, Rhodes asked Alzak to refill a tranquilizer round for each of them. The bandits who were not beaten were frightened, thinking that they were going to be executed on the spot, and they hurriedly begged for mercy and confessed various secrets. There wasn't much valuable information in it, and the most important one was probably that there was still some property and food in the stronghold that they hadn't been able to squander. But Rhodes and the others didn't move. Mages in regular guilds usually have to abide by some rules in this regard, and money other than remuneration is basically not allowed to be touched. The stolen goods in the den of thieves are usually handed over to the client, and the goods are returned to the original owner as much as possible, while food and money are used to compensate the villages that were robbed. Similar to this situation are treasure hunt missions. After confirming the reward, the treasure found has nothing to do with the magician who accepted the commission. Unless the order form states in advance the share of the treasure attached to the remuneration, even if it is priceless, it has nothing to do with the magician. Although fairy tales magicians have a lot of shortcomings, they are more persistent than ordinary magicians on this issue. When going down the mountain, Rhodes dismantled the messy traps to avoid getting a bad rap when the security team came up. The sun had already set when several people were handed over to the prisoners, and the security team immediately decided to go up the mountain to pick up the remaining people tomorrow. However, because the bandit boss is already here, the reward can be settled in advance, and the task is directly confirmed to be completed. The three of them successfully receive their reward and a bunch of words of thanks and praise, bid farewell to the client, and return to the hotel to rest. After running around for a day, Rhodes went to take a shower first, and when he came out, Alzak was sitting by the bed taking care of his pistol. "It's your turn." "Okay." Alzak put down his gun and said seriously, "Thank you very much this time, Rod. Are you referring to completing the mission together, or inviting Biska to form a team?" Mentioning Biska, Alzak suddenly became shy. "They all have it." "Oh," Rhodes said in a long voice deliberately, looking at him trying to escape. He smiled and said, "Hey, you really don't want to stay in the same room with Biska today?" "No, don't talk nonsense. This is our first time forming a team. How could it be possible to that extent?" Alzak's brain almost shut down, and he finally thought of a retort. "Did you and Mira stay in the same room when you went to the capital last time?" Rhodes said calmly, "Let's live in one room." "What?" Arzak didn't know what he thought of. His face turned red. You have already? We stayed in a suite last time, in different rooms," Rhodes said narrowly. "What were you thinking about just now? Did you want to be with Biska?" "Nothing." You can read more daily new novels on fictionzone.net. Both sites share the same login details, so you don't need to sign up again. Chapter 143. This time there was no need for Rhodes to forcefully occupy a seat. Alzak mustered up the courage to sit in the same row as Biska. However, there was still a gap between the two of them, and one turned his head to look at the scenery outside the window, while the other looked down at the aisle. Rhodes took out the playing cards to calm down the atmosphere. He really didn't care about it from now on, and let Alzak do his best. It feels like the relationship between these two people may enter the love stage at any time, maybe faster than his progress. Envious. Rhodes will go back and practice hard for a few more days, and then choose a suitable mission to do with Elfman. The journey was uneventful, but the weather turned gloomy as we approached Magnolia. Biska accidentally glanced out the window. Who was that person? Rhodes and Alzak looked out the window and saw a man in a cloak standing on a hill in the suburbs, carrying several staffs on his back. Rhodes said, "That one is dressed like Mr. Gang, right? I saw him once a few days ago, but unfortunately I didn't see his face." Arzak said, "So this is what Mr. Gang is like. He wrapped himself up too exaggeratedly, right?" It was the first time for him and Biska to see Mistgun, and they had been hypnotized by him several times before. "If it weren't for today, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to recognize him if I saw him on the street in the future." Rhodes encouraged, "Hey, do you want to take the opportunity to hit him twice with the black gun?" Biska was stunned. "Why?" "I'm unhappy. Didn't you hit your head when you fell under hypnosis?" Rhodes thought about his own experience of being hypnotized. At first, it seemed that he and Mira fell together, but I was a little frightened and didn't pay attention. Could it be that Mistigan is actually a good person? No, you can't settle accounts like this. Being rude is rude. I think it's a good idea." Arzak was a little moved. He secretly shot a tranquilizer bomb or something to let the guy sleep in the wild as revenge. It wasn't too much at all, but it's not good now. He seems to be doing important things. Biska frowned. "Is that like practicing?" At this time, Mr. Gang inserted 5 staffs into the ground, and a small vortex was forming in the clouds in the sky, as if a hole was about to be opened in the sky. The hem of Mr. Gang's clothes and cloak were fluttering in the wind, and he held the staff in the middle with both hands. The magic array lights up layer by layer from bottom to top, and the light shines into the clouds. The hole in the sky quickly shrank, and the vortex just appeared again. But this time the rotation was in the opposite direction, getting smaller and smaller, and finally disappeared, as if nothing had happened. Mr. Gang's tense body relaxed, and he slowly inserted the staff back into his back one by one. His back looked a little embarrassed when he left. Rhodes asked, What kind of magic can affect weather clouds? The magic cluster cannon can probably break up a small cloud, Biska said. Is that the power of one of the strongest candidates in the guild? How strong is he? I don't know, Arzak said, but it doesn't look like he is practicing. Go back and ask the president. Rhodes remembered that Mira had said that Mr. Gang had been near Magnolia recently. In this case, that was probably what he was doing, and that was why he stayed nearby. Rhodes looked at the gloomy sky. Could it be that Mist Ridge's mission is to artificially rain? Mist Gang. He has his mission. Don't worry about him. Makarov skipped the topic of Mist Gang. When the three of them heard what he said, they could only think that it was a high-level mission that required confidentiality. Rhodes reported the status of the mission to the president and Mira, praising Alzak and Biska's marksmanship and combat effectiveness. Alzak and Biska in turn praised Rhodes for his pre-war preparations and combat cooperation. The existence of Rhodes saved them a lot of time, reduced a lot of trouble, and even solved many minor problems along the way. Alzak added silently in his heart, and also helped solve a big problem. Mira wrote a few words on the register and smiled. The confirmation is completed. Congratulations. She looked at Rhodes, her eyes burning with gossip, probably because she wanted to hear the stories that happened on the road. Makarov said with a smile, You did a good job. Although it is not a very difficult task, it can kill all the bandits in a short period of time without any accidents and destroy more things. This was already worthy of his compliment. Very good. Oh, by the way, Rhodes suggested, we haven't had lunch yet. Let's have a meal together to celebrate? Well, just in the guild. Alzak glanced at Biska quietly. I have no problem. Biska also glanced at Alzak quietly. Okay. Although we had dinner together yesterday, it was on the way to a mission and in the guild. Rhodes sighed inwardly, originally thinking of leaving them alone in the future. But Mira obviously wants to read gossip. So Rhodes sold Alzak very unfaithfully. That's not right. From his point of view, he should be considered very loyal. If I were my former roommate and I worked so hard to be a wingman, not to mention loyalty, I would be a foster father. Has Mira eaten? Rhodes asked again, Do you want to join us? Mira blinked. Is it convenient? Of course. Alzak thought he had seen through Rhodes' little thoughts and felt that he had to be loyal. Biska probably thought so too, as just one more person could ease the awkward atmosphere. So the four of them gathered at a table in the guild. The atmosphere was not awkward, but it was very strange. Rod and Mira thought about eating Alzak and Biska's melons, but Alzak and Biska thought they were eating Rod and Myra's melons. A few people were eating and talking about their experiences yesterday. The busybodies in the guild felt that they had taken advantage of these four people. So at noon that day, everyone had all-you-can-eat melons, and even a little full. Wrong decision. Rhodes looked regretful afterwards. I originally wanted to take you to watch the excitement up close, but I didn't expect it to become so weird in the end. Mira laughed. But don't you think this is also very interesting? Rhodes rarely complained about Mira. It's really weird that you find it interesting. Makarov suddenly asked, Rhodes, when do you plan to go out next time? Is there anyone who wants to form a team? President, why are you here again? Rhodes wondered whether he should laugh or cry. I just came back. Has someone tried to make you write a self-reflection letter again? That's not the problem. Makarov said, it's already November, and the S-Class Magician upgrade exam will be next month. Based on your level, as long as you work harder, there is hope that you can participate. But, do you remember how many tasks you completed in total? 4. Rhodes counted. One of them is Mira taking care of me, so it's okay to count it as 3, Makarov sighed. 3 missions in 4 months, although the difficulty is not low, and they are completed very well, but the number is really too few. The S-level exam will be held in mid-December, but the qualifications for the exam will be decided at the beginning of the month. In other words, if Rhodes wants to participate, the time left for him is only this month. With only 3 mission experiences, it is absolutely impossible for him to participate. Qualification for the S-level examination requires consideration of a person's magic, will, mind, experience, and other factors. As long as you have the ability recognized by the president in one or more aspects, you can obtain the qualification. For example, Levy in the main drama has obtained the qualification. In terms of strength, he should be the weakest one, far worse than S-Class. That obviously means that he has met the standards in other aspects. My personal preference should be in terms of brains and experience. Quietly BB. Of course, it's also possible that Mr. Mishima wants Tai Long to join the group reasonably. Chapter 144. Rhodes thought for a while and asked, President, the S-level exam is held every year, right? If you don't take part this year, will you still have a chance next year? Of course. Makarov nodded. Do you plan to participate again next year? Yes, I feel that my strength and experience are not enough to become S-class. Even if I pass the exam, it is meaningless. I might as well practice hard for another year. Rhodes thought clearly that S was just a title, a license to accept S-level tasks, and it did not improve his own strength at all. As for relying on brains to make up for the lack of strength, who has the strength to use their brains so tiringly? Even if he has to take the exam, he still hopes to be able to live up to his name. Anyway, he is not in a hurry to take on S-level tasks, and it is the same as taking his time. Makarov said, there is only one person who passes the S-level exam every year. Waiting for one more year may mean that we have to face stronger opponents next year, the children in the guild who grow up quickly. President, Mira was a little unhappy. Why do you have to persuade Rhodes to take the exam? Makarov said, because Rhodes really has hope. Just because he can refuse the opportunity that is so close to him, he has passed the test in one aspect. Of course, on the other hand, there may be some problems with self-confidence, which still needs to be observed. It's only been 4 months since he learned magic. It's too early no matter what. Mira glanced at Rhodes with some worry. Let him make his own decision. Makarov knew what Mira was worried about, but Rhodes wouldn't have that kind of problem. Even if this child passes the exam, there is a more than 90% chance that he will not dare to take on an S-level mission, or if he does, he will have to find another S-level team. Forget it. You can think about it yourself. Makarov sighed and went up to the second floor with his hands behind his back. He still had something to do. Mira looked at Rhodes and bit her lip gently. I'm sorry. Rhodes smiled and said, don't worry, I understand what you mean. For this kind of thing, just let it take its course. I won't act rashly. Mira nodded and gave him a smile. Then she lowered her head to write and draw on the register. She made a mistake and crossed out Rhodes' name, rewrote it once, and crossed it out again. No, you don't understand. I'm worried that you think I'm questioning your abilities. Is this some new type of curse ritual? Rhodes was frightened by her actions. Mira, Rhodes is not worthy of death. Mira rolled her eyes at him and said angrily, go and do your business. Okay. Rhodes ran to the backyard, preparing to continue practicing advanced flight movements such as gliding on the ground and climbing up the wall. After thinking for a while, he summoned Worm. I'll give you a difficult task. Once you complete it, you'll get a big golden ticket. After rearranging the messy register, Mira saw a white-haired dumpling in front of her eyes, with its big tongue hanging out and looking cute towards her. Seeing her looking over, Worm rolled on the spot, revealing his pink heart-shaped belly, looking like he was begging to be touched. Mira glanced at the hall door. Although she didn't see anyone, she knew who was causing trouble without having to guess. She smiled knowingly and patted the counter gently. Why don't you come up here? Worm stood up, looked at the counter and the stools, and decided to challenge. It took a few steps back to run, jumped hard, then hit the stool with a pop and rolled to the ground. It hurts or not, Worm has enough cushioning, but it feels very embarrassing. Its eyes gradually became aggrieved. The horns on its head drooped, and finally it turned around and squatted on the ground. Poro was angry. JPG he squatted for a second, felt very tired, and simply lay down again. Poro continued to be angry. JPG, I'm sorry, I forgot that you can't jump up. Mira smiled and walked out of the counter and hugged Worm back. Huh. Worm's eyes were mischievous. While he was angry, he wanted to peek at Myra's reaction to make sure that he had completed his task. Being angry cannot affect its ability to earn a living. Mira patted Worm's head with a smile, then combed her hair, scratched her chin, and rubbed her belly. Would you like some Poro delicacies? When there is food to eat, you don't have to be angry. I don't know who sent whom the mission to coax whom, but in the end they were all done, and the only one who was injured was Rhodes' wallet. By the time Rhodes could flap his wings and hover above the guild, 5 or 6 days had passed. He made a beautiful dive and penetrated the guild door from the outside. However, the landing was a little unstable due to the high estimation error. In order to avoid embarrassment, Rhodes quickly adjusted to a heroic landing posture. After standing up amidst cheers and applause, Rhodes realized the reason why those people were doing this was because they didn't stand firm. Happy flew over and circled around Rhodes a few times. Rod, do you want to compete with us? Bet on a fish. Okay, let's see who looks more handsome than the pose I just landed on. Love. Happy did a cat drop move, and then tried hard to imitate Rhodes' posture. After trying hard for a while, Happy felt something was wrong. Why is it a comparison of posture and not flight speed? Cats are hard to fool. Rhodes thought for a while and said, fast speed can't attract little female cats, but cool posture can. The little female cat? Happy regains her fighting spirit. Love? No matter how much you think about it, cats are still easy to deceive. The Lane Engine team, who happened to be idle and bored, participated in the voting, and then Rhodes harvested a fish. Happy squatted in the corner aggrievedly, and the whole cat was enveloped in low pressure. The main reason was not that he lost the game, but that Natsu refused to help him buy another one and wanted him to win back what he had lost. Mira said with some annoyance, it's too much to even cheat Happy's fish. Although Happy, who competed seriously and then lost, is very cute. Rhodes looked at her. Should I use although in this place? Mira smiled. What else? Who is going too far? Rhodes felt a little disgusted when he held the fish tail. Happy tasted a bit fishy, which he couldn't stand. Worm, go compete with Happy and bet on a fish. Rhodes was about to lose the fish. Worm's 4 short legs and the difficult postures in the competition are bound to lose, right? However, a few minutes later, Happy owed Worm a fish. Mira saw Rhodes' depressed expression and smiled even more happily. It's rare to encounter a game where neither the winner nor the loser is happy, except Worm. Rhodes said depressedly. Who is the referee? Isn't Happy already the cutest cub in the guild? I'm one of the referees. Lucky came back with a smile. You have no idea how cute Worm looks trying to maintain that pose. Haha, guess who is the owner of Worm? I don't know how cute Worm is, just like Kishimoto doesn't understand Naruto, Oda doesn't understand pirates, and Aoyama doesn't understand Conan. Right? Oh. Chapter 145. In mid-November, the weather is getting colder and colder. If you go out before sunrise, you can already see a thin layer of hoarfrost hanging on the yellow weed leaves on the street. Rod bought a bathing device for his home a few days ago, and he finally has a 24-hour hot water supply. As the weather gets colder, the clothes he needs to wear when going out are gradually getting thicker. In addition, he likes to hold Worm more and more when going out. The little guy is so warm that holding him is like holding a heater. Worm's popularity in the guild is also increasing day by day, and no matter who hugs him, he is reluctant to let go. They even hope that Rhodes could summon more Poros, and it would be best if everyone could raise one. It's a pity that Rhodes can't help. All other wild monsters can have multiples, but Poro can only summon Worm. The business of the landlord, Brother Goodman, has suddenly become very good recently. According to him, it was because his father got inspiration from the wood carvings sent by Rod and improved his carving skills, so his family's handicrafts have been particularly popular recently. In addition, Mrs. Molly is also studying the cloth sent by Rhodes, intending to absorb some experience. For this reason, Goodman reduced Rod's rent by 20,000 yen, and it is now 60,000 yen per month. It would be difficult to find a lower price for a house with the same size and configuration as his home in Magnolia. Everything was developing in a better direction, except for the president, who looked at Rhodes, who didn't want to go out, with a frown. If this continues, his retirement plan will continue to be postponed. When will Rhodes become S-class? President. Oh. Makarov cheered up. Are you going to take the mission? No, I want to ask for your help. Rhodes pointed to the backyard. Oh, you want to accept a new target, right? Makarov nodded. It would be good to improve his strength. That's not the goal. Let me do more mental building. Rhodes actually didn't really want to take over the demon swamp frog. That thing was too ugly, and there was no telling what it would look like after he took it over. But he really wanted the poisonous properties of the demon swamp frog. That thing was good for fighting to death. The aura of, if you kill me, I will poison you too, must be very scary. But if he gets pimples all over his body after receiving it, although he can recover by removing the magic, he still has to think about it carefully. Rhodes said, Today I want to summon a big guy. That's it, let's go then. Makarov thought of the tree monster and that strange additional magic some time ago, and the corners of his mouth curled up. After this kid discovered that the additional magic called Crown of Embers had the effect of restoring injuries, he actually thought of hanging it on him once a day to increase his lifespan. Although it turned out that it didn't have that effect, Makarov was still quite happy. For him, the concern from children is the best medicine to extend his life. The tavern was still lively today, but it was not as noisy as usual, probably because a certain noisy guy had been dozing off on the table. Rhodes looked at him strangely. Except for the time when he suffered from the after-effects of thunder, he rarely saw such a lethargic Natsu. Is he eating randomly again? Makarov shook his head. Don't worry about him. With some doubts, Rhodes came to the backyard with the president and quickly concentrated on performing magic. I am Blue Carved Golem. Rhodes finished reciting the chant seriously, and after calling out the other party's name, a blue light flashed on the ground. Pieces of stones popped up from the ground and quickly combined to form a stone giant. Although the size is not as large as that of the giant magic, it is still 4 to 5 meters tall. There is a large blue ball of light wrapped in the body of the stone giant, which exudes a completely different atmosphere from the red ball of light on the back of the crimson mark tree monster. Blue Glyph Golem, commonly known as Blue Buff, Blue Tyrant, etc. Corresponding to the crimson mark tree monster known as the Red Buff, the two have similar statuses in the game and are quite important wild monsters that are easy to fight for. Because the demon statue in front of him is on both feet, it looks taller than the tree monster on all fours. It just looks a bit silly. Makarov was still the same as before, intending to protect Rhodes and wait until he confirmed the obedience of the wild monster before he introduced him. Rhodes felt the magic power in his body. It consumes the same magic power as summoning a tree monster, but it also has an additional magic power. Rhodes pointed at himself. Crown of Insight. The blue big light bulb inside the golem flickered, emitting blue light that swept across Rhodes' body. 3 blue translucent light patterns suddenly appeared around Rhodes, spinning around and then piercing into his body. After a moment, 3 light patterns reappeared, spinning once again and drilling into Rhodes' body. Every time he absorbs these light patterns, Rhodes can feel a small amount of the magic power in his body being restored. This is the most important magic power recovery effect of the Blue Tyrant Talisman. It's just that maintaining the existence of the golem still consumes a lot of magic power. The current situation is that the recovery speed is slightly slower than the consumption speed. Rhodes frowned. This is unreasonable. He had a little guess. President, do you want to give it a try? Makarov nodded. Come on. Crown of Insight. Rhodes pointed at Makarov. Blue light swept across, and the same blue light pattern appeared around the president's body. But these light patterns only revolved around the president and had no intention of penetrating into his body. Makarov did not notice the change and asked, "Will it not work for me?" Rhodes shook his head. "No, you may need to spend some magic power to see this." "Oh." Makarov stretched out his hand and released a beam of light magic into the sky at will. The constantly wandering blue light patterns immediately penetrated into his body and then regenerated. Is this an additional magic that instantly restores all magic power? There was a moment of panic on Makarov's face. He only knew one way to do this, and that was Fairy Tail's biggest secret. No, that's not right. It shouldn't be that exaggerated. Makarov calmed down and quickly cast several defensive spells that consumed very much magic power. When the blue light penetrated his body again, Makarov breathed a sigh of relief. It should not be an unlimited recovery. At least the recovery speed is not as fast as I thought. But something is wrong. According to this recovery speed, why is Rhodes' magic power still slowly declining? Rhodes grimaced. It's because I'm too weak. As expected, this thing returns mana based on a percentage, just like in the game. A person as powerful as the president, with a crown of insight, can use magic rationally in a short period of time, and can even use pseudo-infinite firepower. But the total amount of magic power of Rhodes is insufficient. The effect is to allow the golem to exist for a longer period of time. However, he is not discouraged. This way of consuming and recovering at the same time can at least allow him to maintain the golem to fight with others, instead of being like the tree monster who can only be used as a trump card. As long as the magic power is increased, the consumption and recovery will soon be equal. No matter how hard you work, it is equivalent to buying a powerful wild monster in every battle. For such a big man, it is better to punch than him in person. The damage is high. Rhodes estimated his remaining magic power. Maybe I can try to receive it in a few days. Makarov asked, "Are you sure? I remember you said that receiving consumes a lot more magic power than summoning, right? Well, you may lie down after receiving it, but you don't need to summon it for the second time. You can earn a transformed form." Rhodes made a mental calculation and said, "It's okay to wait a few more days. It's safer. I wish you all a happy Mid-Autumn Festival because I want to take a vacation but haven't saved my manuscript. I also have to type during the Mid-Autumn Festival." You can read more daily new novels on fictionzone.net. Both sites share the same login details, so you don't need to sign up again. Chapter 146. That huge rock fist waved like a tiger, but unfortunately its huge body couldn't run in the small yard. Come on, try that move again. Rhodes discovered that the golem also has some earth magic, which is worth studying. Makarov's eyelids jumped. Don't damage the wall again. With a simple instruction, he returned to the tavern. Apart from receiving the first summons for the first time, Rhodes really didn't have many things to worry about when practicing magic. I know. Rhodes was thinking about where to find a larger training ground where red and blue could come out to have fun. The forest outside the city is quite suitable, but it's not safe for him to go there by himself if he runs out of power after playing for a while. It wasn't until his magic power was almost unbearable that Rhodes stopped, did some more physical training, and returned to the tavern. He took a special look and saw that Natsu was still listless. Even though Gray was sitting near him, he didn't provoke him. Kana held a wine glass and sat next to the drinking buddies Mikao and Wakaba, listening to their conversation. When the two guys talked about how young girls were doing, Kana showed a look of disgust. Erza took on an S-level mission some time ago. She just came back yesterday and is now talking to the president at the counter. Mira isn't here. Rhodes looked around but did not see Mira. He walked to the counter silently, wondering whether she had gone to the warehouse or the kitchen, or maybe she had gone shopping. Thank you for your hard work. Makarov said thank you to Erza. Rhodes came just in time to help Erza complete the final process. Okay. Rhodes skillfully took out the register and pin, and asked casually while writing, Erza, your armor? Ah, this is the Thunder Emperor's armor. Erza said, the one I usually wear is broken and is being repaired. Is it weird to wear this? Rhodes shook his head. No, it just feels quite fresh. Erza's armor and weapons should be considered magic items. Most of them can be worn like ordinary clothes. As long as you are not fighting or being attacked, you don't have to worry about magic power. A small number of them will be burdensome as long as they are worn on the body. Of course, this type of armor is often very powerful. Making Erza's armor suffer damage seems to be a very difficult task. However, it is natural for S-level tasks to be so difficult. Rhodes almost drooled when he looked at the long list of zeros on the order form. As he was writing, Rhodes' pen tip suddenly stopped. No, President, this is an S-level mission. Is it okay for me to register? It doesn't matter. It's done anyway. Just remember to keep it a secret. Makarov glanced at Rhodes. The reason why others are not allowed to go up to the second floor to see S-level missions is because they are worried that they will show off their strength or be unable to withstand the temptation of high rewards and do something stupid. But you, kid, you are allowed to take the S-level mission as an exception. Will you take it? Time flies so fast. Has Rhodes already shared Myra's work? Erza looked old-fashioned. Look, seriously comment on Rhodes' progress. I just helped her when she was away or too busy. Rhodes thought for a while and asked, speaking of which, where did Mira go? She and Elfman went to church. Makarov whispered, today. Is Lysana's death anniversary? Rhodes was stunned and raised his head. Has it been a whole year since that incident? Erza's tone was also a little low. When Mira first joined the guild, she took the initiative to say hello and wanted to get along well. But later on, I don't know why there was always tit for tat. After Lysana's incident, they were finally able to get along well, but this was not the situation Erza wanted. If you are worried, go ahead, Makarov said, but you also have to have some confidence in Mira and Elfman. Rhodes finished the work at hand silently, put away the register and pin, and then said, President, I'm going out for a moment. Erza looked at his back. Rhodes is also a person who cares about his companions, Makarov said. Because he is also a member of Fairy Tail? So that's the case. No wonder Mira didn't go to see him when she heard that he was going to summon a new wild monster. She obviously complained about the summoning last time he didn't call her when the tree monster came. No wonder Natsu is listless today. No wonder everyone is restrained from laughing. Rhodes walked quickly toward the church in the city center, his speed getting slower and slower. Go buy a bouquet of flowers. He went to the flower shop and explained the purpose of the bouquet, and the clerk helped him wrap a bouquet of white lilies. After holding the bouquet and leaving, Rhodes walked a few steps and then stopped to look at his clothes. It would be better to change into black. I hurried home to change my clothes, and then hurried to Cartier Cathedral. Along the way, Rhodes carefully organized his words. How to persuade Mira and how to encourage Elfman. He hadn't been so panicked for a long time. When entering the church, Rhodes met an old man dressed as a priest and asked cautiously, Excuse me, where is the cemetery? Right behind here. Thanks. As the two of them passed each other, the old man suddenly said, Keep calm, kid. Rhodes stopped and looked at him doubtfully. Confused emotions and too many distracting thoughts are not conducive to expressing your condolences for the deceased. The old priest smiled kindly at him, Before entering the cemetery, please think carefully about why you are here. Bar. Rhodes paused. Is it for Mira? For Elfman? For himself? He looked at the flowers in his hand. If he went there with that kind of mentality, he would not be qualified to stand in front of the child's grave, right? Thank you for your teaching. Rhodes bowed slightly towards the old man and watched him leave. He took a deep breath and stepped into the cemetery. I am the Wizard Rhodes of Fairy Tale. I am here today to pay homage to my lost companion Lysana. That's all. There is silence in the cemetery, with tombstones standing there quietly. People who step into this place always step lightly. Rhodes easily found the location he was looking for, because Elfman was standing in front of the tombstone and Mira was squatting next to him. There were obviously two people, but when Rhodes looked at their backs, he felt that they were alone. Rhodes walked over slowly, deliberately walking a little heavier when approaching the siblings. When they turned around, they said softly, "Excuse me, Rhodes." Elfman was a little surprised. Why would you? I heard from the president that today is Lysana's death anniversary, so I came here to send a bouquet of flowers. Mira didn't seem surprised. She stood up, gave up her position in front of the tombstone, and bowed slightly to Rhodes. Elfman quickly followed suit and made the same move. Rhodes nodded to them, then looked down at the tombstone. The tombstone looks very ordinary, with the fairy tale logo engraved on it, Lysana's name written on it, and then the year of birth and death. He leaned over and put down the bouquet, thinking about Lysana's appearance that he had seen in the photo before, and observed a moment of silence. After saying something to Lysana in his heart, Rhodes looked at Mira and Elfman. I'm sorry for disturbing you on such a day. No, thank you for coming to see her. Mira stared at the tombstone. Lysana will also be happy to know that there are outstanding newcomers joining the guild. Elfman said, Lysana is like that. Chapter 147. After Rhodes paid his respects, Mira squatted in front of the tombstone and whispered to Lysana. Rhodes signaled to Elfman and quietly retreated outside the cemetery to wait. After a while, he saw Mira standing up and reluctantly placed her hand on the tombstone and rubbed it for a while before leaving. The three of them walked together on the way back to the guild, and the atmosphere was somewhat silent. I'm fine, Mira said. Yeah. Rhodes nodded slightly. Mira said, I thought you would say that the matter has passed and advise us not to be sad or something like that. Rhodes shook his head. That was my original plan. But even if I stand in the cemetery, I will feel sad. Lysana's tombstone reads X768, X782, which means she was only 14 years old when she died. Even according to the laws of this country, she will not be considered an adult until this year. This situation should be called premature death. It is a very sad thing for relatives and a pity for others, not to mention that there is such an inside story. Looking at the sad expressions of Mira and Elfman in the cemetery, Rhodes couldn't even say a word of condolences at that time. As for now, Rhodes took a deep breath and spoke again. The president said that sadness comes from life and love. I can't stop you from expressing your love for Lysana. However, we commemorate the deceased not to immerse ourselves in sadness for a long time, but to remind us to cherish life and inspire us to continue to move forward firmly. That is probably what Lysana wants to see. If there is another article, the president would probably say so. Mira looked at the sky. What do Elfman think? As a man, no matter what happens, you must try to live and go on firmly. That would be perfect, Rod said. If there were really two siblings who could talk so easily, they wouldn't have difficulty receiving magic by now. When she was about to return to the guild, Mira returned to her usual smile. Thank you, Rhodes. Rhodes shook his head. Just don't blame me for being reckless. How could that be? Mira smiled. It was rare to see him act rashly. And didn't you act recklessly in the cemetery just now and pay your respects properly? She thought for a while and asked, I may be very busy next time. Can you help me a little more? Okay. Rhodes, the tavern waiter, has been promoted to assistant to the president's assistant. Rhodes said, Will there be a salary increase? Mira said, Because there is no such position in the guild, there is no salary increase. The three of them stepped into the guild gate together, and Rhodes continued, I won't get a raise for my promotion, so I want to complain. Mira regained a little liveliness. The complaint has been received and dismissed. Rhodes raised a hand. Continue to appeal and complain all the way to the top management, the inspection team, and the person in charge of the finance department. Those are all mine. Keep rejecting them. Mira knocked his arm off and said with a smile, But as compensation, I can buy you coffee. Rhodes grimaced. It's even more inhumane. If you are forced to work overtime and buy coffee, doesn't that mean you have to work overtime until late at night? So what if I don't have humanity? I'm a devil. Mira made a ferocious expression, not being ferocious at all. So do you want to go?
Yes.
You would be a fool not to go. Elfman suddenly stopped. Road. Let's have a fight? Why? I don't know why, but I suddenly want to fight. The tavern became inexplicably agitated, with a bunch of people waving their fists. K him. Elfman? Come on, Elfman. It's up to you, Elfman. What's wrong with you? Rhodes roared and then said, enough training tonight. Everyone felt disappointed and finally confirmed that Mira and Elfman, there's nothing wrong with it. We can make a fuss, but it's delayed. Everyone was upset for a while, so a wine glass flew out. If you don't want to fight, you can find trouble to fight. If you are idle, you are idle. Rhodes raised his hand and knocked the wine glass away at will. He pushed Myra's back with the other hand and told her to go to the president first to avoid it. Probably this made some people even more angry and at the same time made them lose their scruples. So plates, wine bottles, and various sundries flew out immediately. Rhodes picked up a stool, rotated it a few times to block it, then put down the stool, stepped on it with one foot, and said in a whisper, I have some experience in dealing with flying objects. Rod. UB****************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** and the stool was pulled out from under his butt. Rhodes didn't even look at him. He looked up at the sky, not because he was arrogant, but because, I don't fight with naked men. Gray lowered his head. When? If you care about such trivial matters at this time, you're going to bully him. Gray was knocked down by someone unknown, and a group of people rushed forward and attacked Rhodes. You have experience in dealing with flying objects. How about dealing with flying people? Hey, you don't have martial ethics. I don't know who punched him, but he kicked him back. I don't know who kicked him, so he elbowed him back. The real man battle between one person and more than 20 people officially started, and the scene was chaotic. Gray, who was knocked down at the beginning, was stepped on several times. When he got up, he had forgotten about Rhodes and just grabbed a nearby person and started beating him. Elfman, who originally wanted to fight Rhodes, was inexplicably hit several times by others and forgot his original goal. The fight that was originally started to beat up Rhodes quickly turned into a big melee. I don't know who is being beaten, and I don't know who is being beaten. Anyway, fight first and then talk about it. Until someone couldn't restrain themselves and took the lead in using magic, many people were ready to start a serious fight. That's enough, brats. Do you want to break up the guild? Enough is enough. Spear of the Thunder Emperor. The voices of Makarov and Erza sounded together, followed by a big hand and a Saiyan thunder and lightning. Most of them were knocked into the floor by the president's big hand, and the other half were twitched by Erza's thunder and lightning. Rod was among the group of people who were photographed on the floor. Ah la la la. Mira was watching the excitement as usual, watching everyone's misfortune, focusing on someone lying in the pit with a regretful look on his face. Because someone pushed her near the president, she was not knocked down by a flying bottle or Elfman today. A few minutes later, Rhodes sat in front of the counter and asked Mira to apply the potion on his face with a depressed look on his face. I was careless. I should have run out quietly before the president got angry. Rhodes reflected on his mistake. He mainly wanted to hit back with 2 more punches and was too greedy for output. Don't go out of your way to cover the dishes for this kind of thing. Mira patted his shoulder lightly and went to the kitchen to get 2 peeled hard-boiled eggs. Turn around and raise your head. Rhodes did as he was told, leaning against the counter and raising his head, and found that Mira looked good from this angle. The egg was gently placed on his eye socket, rolling slightly and feeling warm. These people's attacks were too dark, and their eyes were bruised. It hurt a little, but Rhodes laughed out loud. It was a good fight. Anyway, he didn't lose in any sense. The group of people who remembered why they were fighting became even more angry when they saw this scene. Not to mention blue eyes. There are also many people who have bumps on their heads, swollen faces, and knocked-out teeth. When did you ever see Mira care so much about this kind of injury that wasn't even considered a minor injury? Damn, Rhodes. Let's fight again. Huh. Erza, who was wearing the Thunder Emperor's armor, glanced over. Everyone stopped. Forget it. Next time. Chapter 148. Because someone came to take over the task, and the president left the matter to Mira, Rhodes had no choice but to take matters into his own hands. Can I still eat eggs after applying them to my eyes? Rhodes has always wanted to ask this question, Mira said. It's best not to do it. But you can also try it to see if it will cause stomach upset. Rhodes thought about it and thought it would be too wasteful to throw it away, so he rinsed it with water and stuffed it into Worm's mouth. Anyway, he never got upset no matter what he ate. Worm not only didn't dislike it, but also wanted to thank him. Even wanted 2 more. Wait until I get beaten again next time. Rhodes pulled Worm's furry little face and threw him in through the food delivery port. Mira reminded. Rod, Mr. Cook will be angry. The consequences of irritating the chef will be disastrous. Rhodes whispered. Don't tell him I did it. Worm can't speak anyway. Well. Mira thought for a moment and pushed over the bills from the tavern for the past few days. Unless you help me finish the calculation, I guarantee you won't make any mistakes in the calculation. Rhodes straightened the bill, picked up the pen, and started calculating. After thinking about it, he stopped again, ran to the counter, and sat down next to Mira. Mira looked at him and whispered, It's true. What? Nothing. Mira, this mission. Jet put a commission sheet in front of Mira, looking very anxious. Let me see. Mira looked and saw that there was nothing wrong with the difficulty. Do you want to go by yourself? Where are Levy and Troy? Troy also photographed a commission on the counter. Mira, I want this mission. Please hurry up. Our lane engine team has been temporarily disbanded. Ah, by the way, it's already this time. Damn it, Jet and Troy actually ran away. I'm going to work too. A group of people who were leisurely just now suddenly crowded in front of the bulletin board. Go away and get the cloth. You're not working anyway. Who said that? I'm looking for a job that only I can complete. Who cares about you? Get out of the way. Poor Nabu was lifted over his head by a group of people, carried outside bit by bit, and thrown out. What the hell, all of a sudden? Nabu rubbed his butt and stood up, sitting next to Macau, who was still drinking. Macau looked like he had come before. Did it start so early this year? Young people are really energetic. Wakaba sighed. By the way, Nabu, why don't you work hard? Take the S-level exam. It turns out to be the S-level exam. Of course. Nabu frowned and immediately became dejected again. You can't do it without mission experience, right? Macau said, then go to work. Aren't those guys just cramming and competing to express themselves? Nabu hesitated for a moment and said firmly, No, I must find a job that only I am qualified for. Macao said with a headache, You are really stubborn. Ha ha ha. Wakaba said with a smile, Aren't our entire guilds full of guys like this? The positions in front of Mira and Rhodes were gradually surrounded. Alzak, Warren, Marcus, Pajita, and others all crowded over, vying to take over the task. No wonder you said you'll be busy for a while. Rhodes looked at the surging crowd and naturally took over the ghostwriting duties. Mira no longer cared about talking to him. Don't be anxious. Tell me one by one. I came first. Mira, can't you skip this step? No. Mira refused immediately, except for this. Wait until I confirm before leaving. You must not leave without permission. Those who couldn't urge Mira had no choice but to urge Rhodes. Then Rhodes should be faster. That's right. How can anyone register and write so slowly? Rhodes didn't understand their behavior. What's the rush? It's not like the exam will be tomorrow. What do you know? In times like this, you have to race against time. It's just that I don't understand anything, a newcomer. Hurry up. Rhodes was so disturbed by the noise from these guys that he couldn't bear it and opened his mouth. Erza. The crowd fell into a brief silence. Then Erza's voice sounded. Be quiet. Get in line. Huh. The crowd quickly formed a long queue. Although there was some pushing and shoving, at least Rhodes' ears were clear. It's great to have a flanking girl, discipline committee member. After a commotion, the guys who were forced to the back of the line glared at Rhodes. Okay, why are you calling Erza? Rhodes dug his ears and continued working. He felt that with his ability to attract hatred, if he didn't become stronger quickly, he would be beaten to death by his companions sooner or later. After finally getting rid of this group of S-level exam activists, Rhodes rubbed his wrist and asked, Are they like this every year? Mira thought for a while. Absolutely. It seems to be a few days earlier this year. Lucky added. It seems that because Jet wanted to sneak away, he started preparations in advance, but everyone found out, and it became like this. Now the tavern is much deserted than usual. The remaining people are either Macau and Wakaba, who think that they are too old and have no potential and don't want to mess around. Either Levy or Lucky have little confidence in themselves and feel that it is useless to take on more tasks now. Of course, Erza didn't need to join in the fun. She just looked at her companions hurriedly out with her hands on her hips, feeling gratified for everyone's efforts. Other than that, it's Natsu and Happy in the corner. Happy was sitting on the table, holding a big fish and eating it quietly, while Natsu leaned against the wall and snored loudly. Whether it was a fight or a mission today, it did not affect him. Natsu. Rhodes hesitated. Would you like to take him to the church? Natsu won't go there to worship. Mira shook her head gently. But don't worry, they will be refreshed tomorrow. Okay. Rhodes nodded and continued to process the information at hand. Erza's best friend was invited by Alzak to form a team. There was no one to talk to now, so she sat in front of the counter. Everyone else wants to work alone as much as possible to prove their ability, but it is better for Alzak to do both. But it's also a good thing that the child is enlightened. Aren't Rhodes going to work? Erza ordered a dessert and looked at Rhodes, who was helping Mira. I heard from the president that your abilities are very good, and Biska also praised you full of praise. If you work hard, you might actually become S-class. My strength is far from enough. I just let nature take its course. Rhodes said, by the way, what are the contents of the S-level exam? It's hard to say. The content of the exam is different every year. In short, it has a certain level of difficulty. Erza clenched her fists with a strangely serious expression. But as long as you have perseverance, you will definitely pass the exam. Haha, it sounded like the truth. Rhodes almost believed it. Chapter 149. Erza is like this. Although what she says sounds a bit ridiculous, she definitely thinks that way. Mira smiled and said, maybe Erza will think that she passed the S-class exam because of her perseverance. Yes, that's it. Erza nodded decisively, and then asked with some confusion, weren't you like this at first, Mira? Oops, maybe that's it. Mira is now not shy about mentioning things from the past, and agrees with Erza's words with a smile. Rhodes thought her expression was saying, Erza is very interesting because of her natural stupidity, but Kana didn't find it interesting. She picked up the wine barrel again after a long time and drank a few gulps, then staggered over and lay down on the counter. I want to quit the guild. Kana's expression was very low, and he was belching wine when he said this. Looking at her expression, Erza didn't even have the heart to scold her. She just said softly, Kana, no matter what, saying that you want to quit is too much, but I have failed 3 times in a row. Kana pointed at them one by one. Erza, Mira, and then Mist Gang. Why do I always encounter monsters like you? Please don't refer to me when you talk about Mist Gang. Rhodes corrected and then advised, looking on the bright side, there are no such monsters this year. If we can still be selected, it may be the most promising year. Kana's wine was half sober, it seemed. The most difficult people have already graduated, so maybe they can really succeed this time. Kana made a quick decision. Mira, I want to take the mission. Mira smiled and said, yes, you can, but you have to wait until you sober up. I'm already awake. Elfman was not among those who were eager to take over the task. He was still training with Mira and Rhodes tonight. What he said during the day that he would fight was not invalidated, but he really wanted to fight. Mira serves as both a referee and a coach. Rhodes didn't have to worry about making Mira angry if he struck too hard. On the contrary, he would be corrected by her when he was weak and not decisive enough. On the other hand, if Elfman has this kind of problem, he doesn't have such a problem at the moment. Both siblings are serious about spiritual practice. Mira tried using receiving magic again, but unfortunately it was still a waste of magic power. But there is no need to worry about her collapse this time, because Rhodes can summon the blue carved golem to add a crown of insight to her. Elfman looked shocked. Is this your new summon beast? Size can represent strength to a certain extent, and the size of this stone monster with blue light made Elfman feel the oppressive force of the Beast King. Is Rhodes already so powerful? Maybe Rhodes thinks that the monsters are strong and he is strong are 2 different things. But in the eyes of others, this is his magic and represents his strength. And Mira was feeling the effect of the crown of insight. She felt that the magic power in her body was recovering rapidly. It is actually magic that can help people restore magic power. This should be something that sky magic can do, right? Isn't that lost magic? What a man. Elfman was not familiar with Wendy, but he had heard of the category of sky magic. Rhodes patted the golem's ankle. No matter how high it was, it would be difficult for him to summon it. This big guy was successfully summoned today. The crown of insight on your body is a special additional magic. That's what the president said. What a great effect. Mira looked at the blue light pattern surrounding her. I feel like more and more people will be willing to team up with you. That's a good thing. By the way, Elfman, do you want to go on a mission together? I recently bought a lot of things for winter during the season change, and I have to earn some living expenses. Team up? With me? It seemed that Mira had not told him what she had arranged for him. But Rhodes just had a suitable excuse. Recently, everyone tends to work alone. It's difficult to find suitable teammates, so I just want to help. Mira glared at Rhodes, but because she wrinkled her nose at the same time, there was no trace of anger at all. This expression may be more appropriately described as coquettish. Yes, yes, but you still have to help, sister. Okay, Elfman, Mira said. Today is already the busiest, and everyone won't be able to come together later. That's right, the president can be brought to work at critical moments. Rhodes suddenly realized that Elfman was not bad, and actually wanted to persuade him to stay. Have you been emotionally involved recently? Then we need to form a team together several times to get more familiar with each other. Mira stood on tiptoes and helped him straighten his collar. Go ahead, choose a suitable task tomorrow, and just go out and relax. Rhodes said, at worst, choose a short-distance mission and come back on the same day, or the next day. Okay. Elfman nodded, and it was clearly arranged by the two people who sang and sang together. Early the next morning, Rod and Nabu lined up in front of the bulletin board. Nabu was a man who never took any tasks every day, but he came on time. Due to everyone's crazy sweeping yesterday, there are already many empty spaces on the bulletin board. If you look carefully, there are still some corners of the order sheets that have not been torn clean and are left on top. Tasks with lower difficulty and good rewards are almost all sold out. It is difficult to find a task that has a suitable cost-effectiveness ratio and is not too far away. Think about it, these people are all working so hard for performance, and their priority must be tasks with more money, less work, and close to home. After thinking for a while, Rhodes returned behind the counter, holding his chin and staring at Mira. Mira looked at him strangely. What's wrong? Aren't you looking for a suitable task? I've seen it all. Everyone's eyes are so vicious. Rhodes sighed. So I just want to wait for you to sort out the newly received task orders, and then cut off one. What? Just say no. Mira closed the ledger and took out a stack of information. But she remembered something and said, but according to someone's words, doing this seems to be an abuse of private rights. Someone pretended that this person was not him and waved his hand. It's okay. I am the assistant of the president's assistant. I can post it for you later. After posting it, I will immediately tear it off as the magician Rhodes. Completely in line with the process. Then in order to improve work efficiency, you can omit them. No, it is to optimize those unnecessary processes, so it is reasonable to take them directly from you. With a smile on her face, Mira sorted out the information at hand and singled out the tasks that met the criteria and gave them to Rhodes. If it does not meet the standards, slightly modify it, or simply fill out a new one. The main elements such as time, location, remuneration, client, and brief content of the task must be perfected. While flipping through the task list, Rhodes shook his head and sighed. What a corruption! The upright wizard Mr. Rhodes has been corrupted by the evil force. Miss Mira Jane. Mira lightly stepped on his toes. Chapter 150. This task. Mira held the task sheet and hesitated. Rhodes leaned over and whispered, looking for Devotian grass. The reward is 88,600J, and the mission location is Galanto's Snow Mountain. Is there anything wrong? It's a very common task, but the reward is a bit low compared to the difficulty. Mira explained. There is a ferocious carnivorous monster in Galantos. Generally speaking, such a risky mission requires a reasonable reward of at least 100,000 J. But the other party has marked an urgent mission. The reward is low, the risk is high, and it's urgent? Maybe there's some inside story? Rhodes said. What is the Devotian grass used for? It was first used to treat colds and fevers, but because of the harsh growing environment and the availability of alternative drugs, it was rarely used. However, it was later discovered that it could be used to treat certain diseases. Mira flipped through the information and said, it is indeed the case. The client's family has contracted that disease and is in urgent need of medicinal treatment. I'm afraid I spent all my savings on medical treatment. Rhodes looked at the odd amount of remuneration and took the task list from Mira's hand. Rod, can Elfman and I handle the kind of monster you mentioned? Those are gregarious monsters. They like to swarm when fighting. Mira glanced at Rhodes. This didn't seem to be a big problem. Be careful, they will use special methods to create avalanches. It's very tricky in a snowy mountain environment. I'm not afraid of group battles. If the avalanche is enough, we can fly away. Rhodes said, that's it. It's an unpopular task anyway. let's go and deal with it. He wasn't sure if this would be considered damaging to the market, but he would have to meet with the client anyway and see if the other party really couldn't afford it or was deliberately lowering the price.
Yes.
Mira nodded. Since Rhodes had already decided, she didn't say anything more. As for whether Elfman cares about the small pay, Mira thinks not. Elfman walked over from the bulletin board. Sister, the task has been selected. Let's take a look. Mira showed him the task list and explained the key points at the same time. No problem, sister, if you're a man. Reward doesn't matter at this time. If it had been anyone else, Rhodes would have said, then your share belongs to me. Unfortunately, it was Elfman. He could only say, then let's go prepare separately. We'll meet here in half an hour. Remember to bring enough winter clothes. Man. Since it was an urgent mission, Elfman responded casually and ran out. Rhodes went to the warehouse and library with ease and took the necessary things before going home to prepare his luggage. Half an hour later, Mira looked at the two people who were ready to go. Elfman remembered to listen to Rhodes's opinions more. I understand, sister. Elfman wanted to fight Rhodes again, but it is precisely because he often fights that he knows that Rhodes is a trustworthy guy. Mira opened her mouth, wanting to say something to Rhodes, but in the end she just looked into his eyes. Be careful on the road. Rhodes smiled. Okay, let's go. This time he left in a hurry, and there was no time to do anything. Rhodes could only bring a book to read on the carriage. Elfman still didn't quite understand Rhodes' task process. What is that? For information about Galanto's snow mountain, you must know more about the mission location. Rhodes showed him the cover, then found a magic book and stuffed it into Elfman's arms. Take this, take it out when necessary.
A man's.
Rhodes replied. If you are a man, just hold it carefully and don't let your sister worry. You are really thoughtful. Elfman, after thinking for a while, he asked, you really want to take action against your sister, right? Rhodes thought for a moment. Elfman might prefer a straightforward communication method, but it's not the time to speak directly yet. So here comes a statement that is both straightforward and not straightforward. Well, I can't admit it yet. Elfman was stunned for a moment and said angrily, what do you mean you can't admit it? You be asterisk 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 D. That's the literal meaning, and it's best not to say this to Mira first. Why should I listen to you? Then decide in a manly way. Whoever wins the next fight will be at his discretion. That's it, man. Elfman couldn't help but agree after hearing the manly way. Then he recalled the huge golem he had seen last night. Do you want to restrict Rhodes from using that move? No, that's not a manly fight. Damn it, if it can be absorbed with the whole body. The magic book in Elfman's hand fell on his lap, and he subconsciously thought, put your head in your hands. Rhodes frowned. This child also had serious psychological problems. He said he wanted to move forward, but in fact it was not that easy. The reason why he forcibly accepted the Beast King was to protect his family in a desperate situation, and it was not his fault at all. But because he was unconscious and moved his hands, he has been unable to forgive himself. Elfman is a gentle child. Mira said so. Rhodes also saw Elfman's previous appearance in the guild's photo album, and his temperament was indeed completely different from now. The gentler your heart is, the more difficult it is for you. Rhodes patted him on the shoulder and did not try to persuade him. If this kind of matter could be solved purely through words, the president would have cured him long ago. Even if you want to escape, you have to have the right time. The journey from Magnolia to the client's village took about 2 hours. Elfman, get ready to get out of the car. Elfman responded, and then he was a little surprised. How do you know? Because my Kenyan swift crab has arrived a long time ago. Rhodes pointed to his own eyes. It has already seen our carriage. What a convenient magic. Elfman put away his magic book and put on his hiking bag. The two entered the village, and Elfman's appearance scared the children chasing them in the street to run around them. Rhodes asked Elfman to wait for him where he was, and went to find a kind-looking old man to ask for directions. Hello, I am the magician of Fairy Tale. May I know where Mr. Kalut and Mrs. Weiss live? Where? Carrot? I see. You are here to help him treat his illness, right? He is a poor child, and he is about to lose his strength. He was clearly driving the carriage to deliver goods to other places in high spirits a few days ago. The old man murmured a few words, and then pointed in the direction. Over there is a house in the yard, but there is no horse in it. What a strange way of identification. Rhodes thanked the old man and called Elfman to go to the house. But if you think about it more deeply, did Mr. Kalut even sell his family's horses for medical treatment? Chapter 151. The client's family does not appear to be wealthy, but it is not to the extent of being described as poor. Of course, this is just the first impression, and we do not rule out the possibility that the change came too suddenly, resulting in no change for the time being. The person who needed the medicinal herbs this time was Mr. Kalut. He was lying in the bedroom and could no longer get out of bed and move around. According to Mrs. Weiss, Mr. Kalut is an ordinary driver, but he likes to take on some long-distance freight and passenger transport business, because it's easier to make money that way. You can rest at home for a while as long as you take an order, instead of going to the market or business guild to find work all day long. He has always done this, but since returning home last week, he has been sick. In order to treat him, he not only spent all his savings, but also sold the carriage and horses, but his condition never improved. Until yesterday, Weiss invited a famous doctor from other places to diagnose that Carrot had a rare disease. His lungs are getting sick, and it is speculated that it may be caused by inhaling something like miasma while going out. To cure this disease, devotion grass is necessary. But because this herb has very few uses and a harsh growth environment, it can only be found in the Galantos Snow Mountains, and that snow-capped mountain inhabited by a ferocious beast called Labong. And ordinary people going up the mountain was like delivering food. So we can only turn to the Magisters Guild for help. The current remuneration is the only money our family has left. I know that such a low remuneration for such a dangerous commission is excessive, but Mrs. Weiss bit her lip. No matter how much the improvement is, I can accept it, but please allow me to temporarily owe. I will work hard in the future, and I will definitely pay back the shortfall as soon as possible. Rhodes looked at Weiss. The haggard look on this lady's face could not be concealed. Her fingers were a little white and wrinkled. She might have been doing laundry and dishes, but there was a small stain on the corner of her clothes, but she didn't change it. Maybe it was too late, or she didn't care about herself. It should be said that it is not ordinary luck to meet such a wife, Mr. Kalut. Elfman was almost moved to tears. Mrs. Weiss, you are such a man. Seeing Weiss' astonished expression, Rhodes explained, he's just used to complimenting people like this, so don't worry about it. Regarding the remuneration issue, we have accepted the entrustment and will not raise prices temporarily unless we encounter extremely special circumstances. In short, the mission content is to find devotion grass as soon as possible, right? Yes. Don't worry, we are quite experienced in search-type tasks, and we have also learned about medicinal herbs. We will not admit our mistakes. Rhodes felt that at this time, the client needed a little confidence, and said calmly, then, let's set off now. Oh. Elfman responded energetically, he is a qualified atmosphere team. In the eyes of Mrs. Weiss, one of the two is stable and reliable, the other is passionate and motivated, and they seem to be very capable of fighting. She felt much relieved all of a sudden. Watching Rod and Elfman walk out of the courtyard, Weiss leaned against the doorframe and looked at her husband in the bedroom, a smile on her tired face. As long as Carrot's illness is cured, everything will be fine. She cheered up. It was time to cook now, and at least entertain the master sorcerer well when he came back. It's time for Jimmy and Hunter to come back too. Weiss. The anxious shouts outside made Weiss's heartbeat almost skip a beat. She walked out of the house to see what was going on. The neighbors Mrs. Nebel ran over panting, and Rod and Elfman stopped temporarily when they heard someone calling the client's name. I heard Mrs. Nepole shouting, Weiss, it's not good. Jimmy. Someone saw Jimmy running to climb the snow mountain alone. Weiss almost fainted, took 2 steps back and leaned against the wall, barely standing still. Jimmy. Why would Jimmy? Weiss could think of the answer to this question without answering it. The child must want to help his father find herbs. This is too. But Mrs. Nepole had even worse news. Hunter is also chasing Jimmy. Weiss felt like the world was spinning, and her body slid softly down the wall. The sky is falling. Her husband was bedridden, and her 2 children were in danger at any time. Coupled with days of hard work, the poor lady's eyes gradually lost their luster. No, nothing has happened to them yet, as long as we can get them back. Get it back. Weiss struggled to get up, not even bothering to wipe the dust off her clothes, and staggered back and forth. Weiss, don't do anything stupid. You will die if you go. Weiss turned a deaf ear and only thought about recovering her daughter and son. Hey, Rod. Elfman was a little impatient. I know. Rod stopped Mrs. Weiss. I can find them. The words she most wanted to hear popped into Weiss's mind, and she looked at the calm wizard with a sad face. Find me 2 pieces of clothing they wore, or anything with their scent. Rhodes didn't say a word, held his pendant and shouted, Shadow Wolf. A huge, two-headed wolf and two ordinary shadow wolves suddenly appeared in the yard, startling Mrs. Napole, and her legs could not stop shaking. Unlike her, Weiss wasn't afraid at all and just looked straight at Rhodes. Their noses are very sharp, and they can find your children as quickly as possible. Rhodes touched the wolf's head and repeated what he said before. I need the children's clothes or anything with their scent. A calm and firm tone, and an effective way to solve problems as quickly as possible. Rhodes' words awakened Mrs. Weiss as if from a nightmare. She ran to the siblings' room in embarrassment and pulled out 2 sheets. Please, please. Tears accumulated in Mrs. Weiss's eyes, and she was speechless. Rhodes asked the shadow wolves to smell the scent on 2 sheets and waved them to leave immediately. Please believe in the ability of fairy tales magicians. Rhodes held the pendant again. Canyon swift crab. 2 river crabs appeared, and Elfman sat on them consciously. Thanks to his sister, he had ridden this thing many times. Without waiting for Rhodes to say anything, Elfman directly urged he crab to set off. Rhodes rode on another river crab. Before leaving, he turned around and said to Mrs. Napole in as gentle a tone as possible, Sorry to scare you, but it happened suddenly. Please allow us to come back and formally apologize. Can you please look after Mrs. Weiss now?
Yeah.
Mrs. Nepal nodded blankly. Rhodes smiled at Mrs. Weiss again. Please prepare some hot water, etc. It's very cold on the mountain, and the children may suffer from the wind and cold. Chapter 152. Galanto's Snow Mountain, also known as Snowdrop Flower Mountain. The nearby village, where Mrs. Weiss lives, is named after this mountain. The mountainside and above are covered with snow all year round, and only the foot of the mountain in the south will briefly thaw when summer comes. It was November at this time, and the foot of the mountain was also white. The cold wind blew, biting the bones. The fine snow particles are blown by the wind and roll on the surface of the snow like fine sand on the beach. So even on a sunny day, the footprints left by people going up the mountain will be quickly buried. At that time, it will become very difficult for people on the mountain to find a way down the mountain, or for people at the foot of the mountain to go up the mountain for search and rescue. In addition, the further you go up the mountain, the thicker the snow and the stronger the wind. It will be very difficult to walk normally at that time. If you are not careful, you may fall down and be buried in the snow, and sleep here forever. However, even under such harsh conditions, Jimmy still walked hard forward, looking left and right for the herb that carried the hope of their family. Her little face was already red from the cold, and even though she was wearing a thick cotton coat and a hat with a cotton coat belt, she could not block the biting cold wind. Devotion, devotion, white bell-like flowers. She repeated the characteristics of the medicinal herbs in a low voice, as if to cheer herself up, or as if she was worried that she would miss the white flowers in the snow. If you find the medicinal herbs, you can cure your father. If you cure your father, your mother will not have to work so hard, and your brother will not have to hide and cry secretly. Children sometimes do things with clear purpose and do not consider the consequences, or they think that bad things will not happen. That's what Jimmy is like. She just wants to use her own efforts to make this family return to what it was before. Hunter, who is chasing his sisters back, probably has a similar logic. When dad is sick, it's up to him to protect mom and sister, and it's up to him to cure dad. The snow-capped mountains are a very dangerous place, and I cannot let my sister go there alone. 2 small figures staggered on this snow-capped mountain, looking for the target they wanted to find. Found it. Sister Jimmy's eyes lit up. Under a slightly protruding rock, several emerald green stems and leaves seemed to poke out from the cracks in the stone, with small white flowers hanging on them swaying in the wind. Although surrounded by snow, they still show vigorous vitality. Jimmy trotted over excitedly and even fell down. She didn't care that her clothes were stained with snow, and she didn't even bother to stand up. She moved forward almost on all fours, carefully peeled away the snow, and gently pulled out the herbs and part of the roots. One after another, Jimmy put the herbs into his clothes, as if he was gathering hope for his father's recovery bit by bit. After a while, Jimmy stood up with hope, but staggered a little. Her physical strength was severely exhausted, but she still walked one step at a time. She had to work hard to bring the herbs back. Elder sister. The familiar voice made Jimmy wonder if he was hallucinating because he was too tired. But isn't the silly kid in front of me with his arms folded, his neck hunched, his nose red and his snot almost frozen? This is his stupid brother? Hunter, why are you here? Of course I'm here to find my sister. Hunter sniffed hard, but didn't move. Mom said, the mountain is very dangerous, and I want to protect my sister. Jimmy didn't know whether he should be angry or laugh. As a person who sneaked up the mountain, he didn't seem to have the right to reprimand his brother, right? Idiot. I found the medicinal herb. Let's go back to save Dad. Sister. Hunter's eyes widened, looking behind Jimmy in horror. What happened? Jimmy turned around and his body froze. A monster as big as a bear, with a head like a rabbit and eyes glowing red stood behind her. Labang's claws and arms are swung down, trying to kill, stun, or scratch the prey. This is their common hunting method. Hunter rushed out and pushed Jimmy away, but he was swept by Laban's fingertips. His cotton coat was torn, and he rolled several times on the snow. A little bit of blood was sprinkled on the snow. Hunter. Jimmy lay on the snow, ignoring Labong behind him, and crawled towards Hunter on his hands and knees. But she desperately discovered that another wolf pack appeared behind Hunter. Jimmy's face turned pale. His lips were trembling. It was over. Labong let out a warning breath. But the three wolves pounced on them without any hesitation. Jimmy watched blankly as the three wolves jumped over Hunter and rushed toward Labong, not even noticing that one of them had two heads. The two ordinary wolves bit Labang's arms, while the two-headed wolf jumped up, pressed its claws on Labang's shoulders, bit each other's ears, one on the left and the other on the right, and tore them apart. An ordinary wolf was thrown away, but Labong soon fell to the ground with blood dripping from his body. Jimmy cautiously crawled toward Hunter, and then saw more of Labong. Laban are social animals. Jimmy remembered what everyone in the village knew. She heard the howls of the wolves and closed her eyes in despair, but the pain she expected did not come. Jimmy opened his eyes and saw a tall figure from behind. The man's arm was like a monster, standing in front of her, holding the claw of Labong that was attacking her. Are you okay? It was a deep and powerful male voice, sounding like a tough guy and feeling very safe. Before Jimmy could speak, he heard another voice. It's not good. This child is injured and bleeding a lot. You should support him first. This time it was a gentler voice. That's a bit of a tricky amount, but manly. Jimmy was surprised to see that Labong, who was as big as a giant bear, was thrown directly out by that person. Crimson Mark Tree Monster. Crown of Embers. That girl. Forget it. You have one too. Crown of Embers. Jimmy saw a red light surrounding Hunter, and then the wounds on his body slowly stopped bleeding. After being pointed at by the big brother, a red light appeared on her body. Although she didn't know why, she felt warm. The effect of Ember Crown in treating this kind of trauma seems to be quite obvious. Rhodes himself didn't know that this thing could keep people warm. He didn't want to waste a second and commanded the tree monster to give the Laban some warmth. The tree monster waved its front paws and slapped three Labangs away. Those who were thrown out and knocked away by Elfman could still move after struggling a few times. But the Labans who were shot away by the tree monster were already kicking their legs when they landed. It looks like just a casual blow, but the attack power is quite powerful. But Rhodes still reluctantly sent it back to Summoner's Canyon and replaced it with other wild monsters to fight. This thing consumes too much, and he needs to save more magic power to prevent this little boy from having an accident. After the wild monsters and Elfman entangled the Labong group, Rhodes quickly took out the bandages and trauma medicine from his backpack, and while bandaging the little boy, he comforted the little girl. Are your names Jimmy and Hunter? Don't be afraid. We are magicians invited by your mother, and we will take you back. The child's bleeding has stopped. He just needs to sleep. It's okay. We'll go back right away. Quickly bandaging Hunter's wound, Rhodes took out a spare cotton coat and wrapped the child up to prevent him from freezing. After thinking about it, he took out another piece of chocolate from his backpack and gestured to Jimmy. Want to eat it? Snowdrops represent the hope of life and the strength to move forward courageously. Devotion actually means devotion, which means love, enthusiasm, and care. You can read more daily new novels on fictionzone.net. Both sites share the same login details, so you don't need to sign up again.